Hi, this is Jeanette Goldstein, sometimes known as Private Vasquez, and or Diamondback from Near Dark, and you are watching Without Your Head.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, and we're live here at the station of decapitation Without Your Head. I'm Nasty Neal.
That would make me terrible drawing.
I'm Treacherous Trista.
We've got a lot of cool people here. Why don't you, each of you introduce yourselves? We'll start with Jason.
Well, I'm Jason Hewlett, writer, director, and creator of the paranormal reality series We Want to Believe.
Very cool. Brian.
I'm Brian Avenet-Bradley, co-director, writer of Echoes of Fear, which stars Treacherous Trista.
Very good. Robert.
I'm Robert Perez. I am co-founder and programmer for the Stuff Film Festival down here in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Right. South Texas Underground Film Festival for people who you don't know what Stuff is. And Mariella.
Mysterious Mariella.
I'm glad you liked your name. Yes.
I did. I thought it was really neat. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm one of the co-founders, and I'm the festival director of South Texas Underground Film Festival. And we also do a podcast called Curious Transmissions, where we, without all the tangents, we try to talk about folklore, paranormal. Somehow we always end up tying in a movie that has something to do with the unknown. Stuff that really is that you're curious about. So
very cool. Well, it's good to have everyone here for the paranormal special here on Without Your Head.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, glad to be here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very good. All right, so well, first of all, Jason, we showed the trailer for the web series. Can you explain to people what it is?
Well, it's sort of, I work with a gentleman named Peter Wren, who's been a paranormal investigator for 27 years. He's originally from England. He's been doing this all over the world. And he runs Vancouver Paranormal Society up here in Vancouver, British Columbia. And I met him 3 years ago because it was just before Halloween, and I've been interested in the supernatural for most of my life. Had experiences go on that I couldn't explain, and had done a little bit of amateur ghost hunting on my own, which isn't always smart, by the way. And we sort of wanted to hook up and do something fun just before Halloween in 2017, so I went on a ghost hunt with them. And I ended up becoming sort of a lead investigator and a director with Vancouver Paranormal Society. And we were looking at doing a podcast about it, because I already do a podcast with my friend Sean. And so we were at the location that we actually ended up shooting the first 4 episodes of We Want to Believe in. And I did this just like, Facebook Live thing just to kind of tease the investigation in the show. And I'm friends with John Fallon, who's known as the Arrow, of Arrow in the Head, which, of course, is part of Joe Blow Movie Network. And he watched it, and he's like, dude, why are you doing a podcast? Why don't you do like a YouTube web series? And because it's just the way I have a film background and a journalism background, I'm like, sure, why not? And we put a team together and just sort of went back to that location and shot, for a whole day. And we're getting ready to put the show together. And then, of course, COVID-19 hit. And so we had to kind of cobble the pilot together, released it. It went over well. So we then put together the next 2 episodes, which are currently out. And the 4th episode, which wraps up the Demon Jar, which is what we call the first investigation, comes out actually on Monday.
Oh, nice.
So that's kind of how that happened. So, I mean, it took my interest in paranormal. And then I was a mainstream journalist with a newspaper for 10 years. And I have a film background. So it was a way to kind of combine all these interests together, work with like my friends and do something fun that has gone over pretty good with people. Those who watch it really seem to like it.
Yeah, very cool. And we're going to talk more about that because I know a lot of people here watched it, or maybe everyone here watched it, and I know Brian has a lot of things to ask about it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And I know go on, sorry, Brian.
Really bad, so waiting for the episodes is painful.
Okay. We do a lot of the stuff on the Joe Blow Horror Videos, which is where it's run kind of on a monthly basis. They just like to roll it out that way, and they have like many shows, 13 or 14. They got more coming. I'm kind of working with them on another show that we're going to do here sometime in the fall. So we're just trying to get content out and get it out there. It's a great medium because you can kind of do what you want, as opposed to like trying to do a TV show or something like that, right? So
so you don't have to worry about the runtime, I wouldn't think.
No, we try to keep it at a certain length.
Right.
We found like 9 to 10 minutes. We found is pretty good. People seem to like 9 minutes, especially. And because to get Peter to do it, because he's been doing it so long, and he's been approached by Netflix to do like a paranormal show and all these other shows. But he wants to keep it real. Like a lot of the shows kind of get into theatrics and staging things to kind of create viewer interest. He was very adamant about just keeping it as raw and real as possible and showing what it's like to go on these investigations, but still with the film bit and editing to make it still entertaining to watch.
Yeah. And Brian's been on before, but for people who haven't seen those before, but Echoes of Fear, the movie we showed the trailer with Trista, a lot of the inspiration for that is based in reality, or your own house.
Yeah, I mean basically the entire first 20 or 25 minutes of the film, everything that happens was kind of inspired by this house that my wife, Laurence Lowe, we moved into it. Within a year, we had all these experiences, which I kind of jotted down. But I didn't really know what the rest of the story was. It took a while to figure out the rest of the story. I actually combined two other real events that didn't happen to us directly and weaved it together to form the story. But for purposes of today, I think what's most interesting is the stuff that we actually experienced firsthand in the house, which I really don't have an answer for any of it. And we can talk about it, later if we want to get into depth what those experiences were. But it was very interesting because I've always been interested. I've been a horror filmmaker for a long time. And my first memory is my dad who put a skeleton in my bed. So I'm 3 years old, and I pull back the blanket, and there's a skeleton in in and my second
fake skeleton?
There's a fake skeleton.
All right.
That's what he thought.
You're 3 years old. A fake skeleton seems very real.
Right.
My second memory is my mom chewing out my dad for putting a skeleton in my bed. So that's my first memory. So I've always been really interested in horror and what's in the dark and coming from the imagination and what you experience. But before we moved in the house, I had never had any direct experience. So it was just an interest I had, and I loved hearing about ghost stories and was always interested in that stuff. And from a fictional writing background, we did another supernatural horror film. Our third film was Dark Remains, which was also a supernatural ghost movie. But it wasn't until we moved in the house the experiences. So it was very interesting to actually have, after having an interest in it for a long time, to actually have the experience.
Yeah, Mariella and Robert, you guys kind of explained your show there, but can you explain it again? And also, if you guys want to talk briefly about the documentary that we showed, which is amazing.
Okay, so we started this, the idea was to do a podcast, but you inspired us, Neal,
Very good.
but to do live streaming on where it's interactive with Facebook, because I think everybody has some kind of a curious story or experience, or they've heard something, and in our culture, being Hispanic and Native American, we grow up with those types of things. And so we wanted to be able to share with the podcast or Curious Transmissions, our stories, culturally, but also hearing from other cultures' stories as well, if that makes sense. So we talk about paranormal, we talk about, just strange happenings. We talk about, I don't know, maybe how Art Bell would have the conspiracy theories, not the crazy conspiracy theories that you hear now.
Right.
Yeah.
They weren't so dangerous to the world.
Yes. And so we try to talk about that. We try to stay on topic, but it's just really hard. So you'll hear the live, I guess the Facebook Live, we will have a million different tangents go off. And so we're on literally, I don't know, just until about 3 in the morning. So we'll start at 7, and sometimes we're ending up at 3 in the morning because we're just talking. And then we'll bring on filmmakers on the show that have had somehow there's something strange or unusual that's happened around the making of their film. So we'll talk about that as well. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, and the fact that you go off topic a lot is
Yes, we do.
It's clear that I did inspire this.
Oh no! Well,
Yeah, we've never done that, Neil. I don't know what you're talking about.
no.
And
Did I?
Yeah,
Is that all, Rob?
yeah, and I think Robert could talk about the documentary that we played.
Yeah, I've always been a believer. I've always have said that I want to find other people that have experienced things that I've experienced growing up as a child. I guess I've never found answers to these strange things that shadow type entities. And the thing is that maybe almost a decade ago, me and my brother were kind of just reminiscing about our old home in Portland, Texas, where we grew up. And I started mentioning a shadowed figure like leaning out of the wall, reaching for me. And the look in his face, and I'm like, what did I say something wrong? And he goes, Rob, growing up, that same room that you're talking about, when you weren't living there anymore, I used to see a shadowed creature or entity that would stand in the doorway and just stand there when nobody was home, and I was there alone at home. And he just said, we've never shared these stories until now. And it's like, could you imagine if we would have shared them back then? Because I don't know, it was something that happened. My brother is like 7-8 years younger than I am, so he was a little kid at the time when it happened to me. And this started happening to him when he was in high school. That's about junior high school is when it happened to me, this weird entity or whatever it was. The house now belongs to my brother, but he is having weird, unexplained shadows or images in it's almost like reflections through glass, because we got storm shutters. So when you close those shutters, if you don't have like curtains, you can actually make that mirror effect. Well, when he did that, he closed the window shutters. He saw his father-in-law, who had passed away maybe 10 years prior, not at that house, but there's just something happening with that house. There's just a lot of weird activity, energy, or whatever it was. I know that for a while there, I thought maybe it was following me or I was cursed, because I just couldn't explain it. And somebody had told me, a Native American said that sometimes we don't know how to explain these things, and they're not really curses. It's just we're trying to get in tune with our true nature, but we're not trained in that. We're so far removed from the native teachings that we don't understand what these are sometimes. And so I was going to bring this up with Canada, since there are Native Americans all over the place. I'm just wondering if some of these, and then maybe your Bradley, your area, if there is a strong Native background in these parts, because to me it seems that this goes a lot deeper than trying to explain or whatever it is sometimes. And I've always been fascinated by this. There's some other events that I could probably talk about later, but the documentary that Neal mentions, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Cotulla, Texas. It's a relatively small town that was basically founded on the fact that they found oil there. But when the oil boom left, the whole town just kind of, all those people left, except for those, the people that decided to
have their roots settle down there.
Yeah, to have their roots there. Well, there's a curandero that lives there, and people come from all over. I guess you could say all over the world to come visit him and have their cards read. try to find healings for whatever ailments that they have. And this documentary that we made, we spent, it took several months to make, but the bulk of the filming that took place in the feature-length version of the film was during Holy Week. We spent the whole week, and we got to just stay with him and see what it was like to be in his shoes, for this time. He has various farm properties. We saw him working on there. He had I don't know if he still has it, but it was a grocery store, Botanica. So they had like herbs and, foods and all kinds of stuff, and sometimes livestock and all that. He would just, like chicks, and I don't know. It was around Easter time. So, he has all this kind of stuff there. And we just, the days that were so fascinating was when he was going to visit with clientele. They would start arriving about 4:00 in the morning, and they had numbers there that everybody would start gathering numbers. By the time he was prepared around 8:30 or 9, his whole farmland lot was just loaded with cars, and they were going to see one at a time, just like if you were seeing a doctor. And in our interviews with him, he said that I'm going to see everybody until the last person is seen. He'll start at like I was saying, 8:30 or 9:00 in the morning, and sometimes he'll be visiting and doing these cleansings and all that kind of stuff till about 3:00, 4:00 in the morning. The following morning. And then it's just a unique look at curanderos or shaman type of healers that are kind of scattered all over. You got some kind of guys that will set up like in strip malls and stuff like that, and they kind of try to scare you with like, oh no, I'm looking at your cards, you need to bring me $1,500 or else you're going to die. And he's not that type of guy. If you have some money, you want to give him something, he's not asking for any money. He wants to help people, and that's what his purpose is. And that's what our documentary kind of focuses on. It's all in Spanish, so we're trying to get it translated so that way people can kind of see it. We showed a short version,
right,
with
Neal.
The
Severed Limbs Film Festival, the first one we did, and everyone loved it. It was a big.
It was one of my favorite ones. That blew my mind.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, loved it.
But yeah, that's we've experienced firsthand, and well, in that documentary, it does have an exorcism in there that. I guess that was like one of the major components of it. That's why we put it in the short. But it's it's always fascinated me. I've always been looking for other people that have experienced strange phenomenon in their homes. Some people go to, so you believe in this stuff, and I'm like, well, I know what I've seen. Can I explain it? No, but I would like to see more of it. And I guess it's like a drug. I was going to ask you guys. Some people get weirded out or tripped out and they don't want to be around these things, but to me it's a fascination that I want to try to explain what these are. And I know that they can be kind of scary, but I don't know. I try not to tempt the fates if it is a dangerous thing, but I'm just completely fascinated by this type.
Well, that's a good question for everybody. What Robert was saying there. Well, obviously, probably you, Jason, it is something that you want to, find out more about.
Well, absolutely. That's why you do it, right? Like you have your own personal experiences that kind of drive you, and I've had stuff go on since I was a kid, especially after my father passed away, that I couldn't explain. So you want to find answers. And I was, like I said, a journalist. I covered crime primarily for 10 years. And, saw a lot of people die in accidents and murders and stuff. And you just start to wonder what happens after we die. It drives everything. It was even with Peter, everyone on the show, like we all believe to varying degrees, but we want to know what's happening, and you keep looking for that proof that you can get. Our big thing, one of the people on the crew, Sean, he actually does like actual investigations, like in terms of like casinos and stuff, and to prevent gambling and theft. So he's very big on actual evidence so that you can prove it. The problem is with paranormal stuff, your evidence is based on like EVP, electronic voice recording, still shots that people are always going to call bullshit on. You know what I mean? Especially in this day and age of the internet. but we've seen things like, you know, and primarily EVPs, which I know Brian has a question he wanted to ask about what some of the EVPs we got, especially one that we got through a spirit box about, we got the word demon. We asked it to give a name. The name that it came up with was, you know, a demon. It's very clear. But then you go, well, okay, with a spirit box, I don't know if you guys know how they work, but it kind of runs through different audio channels with static. And if something kind of punches through that's clear, that's an intelligent response to a question, like you ask for a name, you get like, you know, like, what's your name? And it goes, Trista. Well, then that has more weight than just gobbledygook. So when we asked a name, we got a demon. And there's a guy on site who lives in the hotel, which keeps saying he's being visited by some dark force in his room, that it's tormenting him. He's yelling at it and swearing at it and trying to get it to leave. So that kind of creates a little more evidence that there could be something there, because he's calling this a demon as well, right? So you get stuff like that, but that's about as tangible as it gets next to something walking into the room in front of you that's like, you know, full spirit kind of thing, and it punches you and you fall over and then it disappears. You know, that's as good as it can kind of get. We got one in an upcoming show. We were using a laser grid in this basement. And we were in there, the lights were all on. It's a room, you could sort of all see all the stuff in it. We turned out the lights and put the grid on, and it looked like there was a shape standing against the wall. It was like an outline of what could be a person. Holy shit. Turn the light on, nothing's there. Turned it off. It's the same anomalies there. You could actually walk over and put your arm through it, move things around, move the laser grid around, but that shape of a person was constantly there. And eventually we turned the light on and off again, and it was gone. It was just completely gone. And we got that on film that we're going to show in an upcoming episode. That's wow. Yeah, you're right, Rob. The more you see that, the more you're driven to want to know more. And that's as tangible as anything really seems to get in the years that I've been doing. And Sim Peter said that too, but he has actual pictures of full spirits that he's caught at haunted sites. You know, and he's seen things move, and he's even, there was a dark shape in a hallway that he actually walked through. Oh wow! It appeared in front of him. He's like, I don't know what else to do, and he just walked through it, and he felt like an electrical charge, and it disappeared. So he's seen a lot more than I have. But it's the more things like that happen, the more you gotta find out more and try to get as many answers as you can.
Brian, how about yourself? Because you know, yours is a little different since it's your home. Like, is it something you try to find more about it or get in more contact with it?
Well, it started, I don't know if this is normal because it's never happened to us before, but it kind of started out as being a progression of things. I mean, this house has like these intercom system because it's a weird house. It's stair-stepped up a hill. So every floor is kind of set back against the previous floor, almost like steps up the hill, each level of the floor. So there's like an intercom system, which is one of the first things that we experienced was the intercom system kind of triggering on its own and then making this distorted noise and sound, which is like, okay, well, I guess it's got a loose wire or something, but it was very random. It wasn't consistent, and the box did work if you push the talk button, but no one was there to push the talk button when it happened. No one was on another floor. So it's like things like that. And then there were like, there were noises in the pipes that we would hear. And then there'd be footsteps in the hall that we would hear at night, like someone walking. And then the first big one really was, we heard like this cat, just like, almost like a cat fight, but it was just one cat, but it was like caterwauling, just like not meowing, just like a cat freaking out. And we couldn't figure out where it was. And then we went down the steps, and this house is like riddled with like these crawl spaces underneath every floor. And we went through the laundry room and through a little closet, and then we found a little door, and we went into this crawl space. And, that's where the noise was coming from, because it was right underneath our master bedroom. So we traced it down that it was coming in this crawl space. But then we climbed into the crawl space with our flashlights and everything, and there was no cat. And there was no way a cat could get in. And we went back the next day to see if like maybe there was an opening led to the outside. The cat could have gotten in and then left. And so that was kind of weird. But then it's, what got me was when I started seeing, which is very interesting what you were saying, I started seeing the, I don't know what you want to call them, shadow shapes. I don't know, but I like woke up and there was like a form I don't know why it was female, but something about the shape told me it was female. But she was sitting at like the foot of the bed, like with her back towards me. I could see her head turn and her back was towards me, and she was kind of sitting off to the side. And I stared at that a long time. And then it went away. And that was like the first one. And that was like, well, that was kind of weird and spooky. But then I woke up and there was one standing in the master bathroom, and it's the same kind of form, but then she rushed towards me, and then I jumped up in bed screaming my head off, and then it was gone. So it was some experiences like that, which rattled me, but at the same time, and it freaked me out. It's hard to go back to sleep. But, you know, I wasn't physically harmed. So I had a natural curiosity about it. I wasn't physically harmed. So I wasn't like, you know, running out of the house. Like in a horror movie, if someone saw that, they'd be so upset if the character didn't just run out of the house, you know, immediately. But, you know, that's not really what you do in real life. Because, you know, you're curious. Well, at least for me, I mean, I'm curious about it. And then, Lo, my wife, she wakes up and she's really mad because she woke up to me yelling my head off, which is another thing, which is distracting, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway, I talk about this in a behind the scenes on the Echoes of Fear Blu-ray, that after we did the movie and shot the movie here, and we redid some of the stuff that we had experienced, we just, you know, put it in story form, but we took the experiences and put it in the movie. After we did that and showed it at some festivals, then nothing happened in the house. So I was like joking around like, oh, that's how you exercise your house. You do it in the horror film. And a very difficult way to do that. You know, and it's like there has to be a better way of doing that. So I did that as a joke in the Q&As as the film played around for a year. But then it was weird after we did the behind the scenes and talked about it, then stuff started happening again, but very sporadic. Like the speaker went off again when it hadn't gone off in like a year, hadn't done anything. And then I woke up in the night and there was a shape at the base of the bed, but it was no longer a female shape. It was a man shape. It was weird. It was just the head and very big, broad shoulders. And kind of screamed my head off on that one. And that was different. So that one kind of rattled me a lot, I guess, because I got used to the other. You know, it's like, but that, I mean, that was months ago and nothing's happened, you know, since then. So I feel like whatever it was has ebbed down a lot. And I don't know if it's because I started talking about it. We did the movie, which made for conversations, and I did a lot of Q&As and interviews where I would talk about these things, and maybe in a way that had something to do with it, but I don't know. I mean, I definitely am not a expert in any sense of the word, and I have a curiosity to it, but I have no idea what it means.
Yeah.
You know?
I think a lot of the times we hear about it just doing investigations, these hauntings or apparitions happen because they want to get attention. They're trying to get attention or get some, like even in your movie, right? There's something that they want resolved in some way. And I think even just by half the time acknowledging that something's there, it gets better, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just been a recurring theme that we've had when we've done actual just cases with Vancouver Paranormal, even just stuff on my own research. It seems to be very common that as soon as you kind of acknowledge it, it gets better. And if it's something you don't want there, you just got to tell it to get out. Like, it's my house, go away. And quite often that does work, actually.
Well, it's weird. It's like I didn't feel like I should do that. And I don't know why, but I didn't feel like I was in a position to ask that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's weird. I don't know why that would be, but it didn't feel like an appropriate, I don't know. It didn't feel appropriate. Is that weird? I don't know.
No.
It didn't, and it's funny. It's like I never even thought about that. I never even thought about like, dark entity be gone. You know, it just never occurred to me. Yeah. And maybe it's because of, like I said, the curiosity part of it. And I guess one thing that I've felt, and you know, like I said, I have no basis on anything other than my personal experience. But one of the things I've always thought about, and I tried to put this in the movie a little bit, Echoes of Fear, is oftentimes wonder if there really is like a firm division between, you know, a haunting being in your mind and a haunting being out there, or these experiences being in your head versus out there. Sometimes I wonder if there's like, that's a very, I don't know. It's like, that's like a simple way of looking at it. I think I put a line in Echoes of Fear where Trista's friend, her character's friend, says like, well, whether it's out there or in there, a ghost or entity is going to reach you in your head, because it's only by being processed in your head that you react to anything. Mm-hmm. So then it's like the idea of whether something's in your head versus out there, for me, it kind of falls apart a little bit, because everything we process is in our head. So then it's like, well, if there was like an energy or whatever in the outside world that wanted to make contact with you, well, there's no way they could make contact with you unless they got inside your head. Now you could say it was like whether they could just directly, you know, reach inside your head and mind, or whether they need to go through the eyes or the ears, you know, and actually do it in a physical way to reach inside your brain. I don't know, but I found that interesting the more I thought about it, because I was like trying to figure out like, well, am I having like a dream state experience where even though I think I'm awake, I feel like I'm 100% awake. And even when it's over, I'm awake. I'm not like, you know, like in a horror film, waking up out of bed again. You know, that's not happening. But even though I feel that way, I was like curious, like, well, maybe that's not true. But then, you know, Lo would wake up and I'm awake. So it's like, you know, I don't know. And then because as a kid, I used to have, I guess I still do occasionally, I used to have night terrors, which is a very different thing. Where you are awake, I mean, you are asleep and you wake up screaming without really having a connection to it. But this was different than that, and I think that's one of the things that helped me feel like something more was going on, because I had experienced night terrors before and I knew what that felt like, and I knew that this felt very different than a night terror. Although Lo did make fun of me on one of Neal's other shows by playing, we have a Nest camera system, and she played like the audio of it recording me screaming my head off after I saw things. So the audio of me just yelling like mad, like this ridiculous scream, which
I think
people would laugh. People would laugh in a horror film.
I think it should be the Wilhelm scream of your future, projects.
It sounds silly. But it's real. You know, it's a real panic scream. Doesn't sound like a movie scream.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting.
I'm finding so much parallels with what you've been talking about, your experience. When I saw the shadowed entity or whatever you want to call it in the wall, because what it was, I was see, you were talking about energy, and if we're, you know, how this is being manifested. I went to bed angry, and the thing is that I was I want to say I was in junior high, and I was upset, and I went to bed in that state. I know I went to bed. Next thing I know, something is like calling me. I'm not saying they're calling my name. It was like a sense, like something's calling me. I open my eyes and I look up at the wall, and there's a dark entity like on the wall, and then it starts kind of leaning forward, like reaching for me. I started screaming. I was like, and the next thing I know, my mom and my brother, he's about 3 years younger than I was, so he was, I don't know. And so they come running in, turning on the lights, and I'm pointing at the wall, and I'm looking away, and I said, there's something trying to get me. It's in the wall. It's coming at me. And they turn the lights on, and my brother's like, dude, there's nothing here. It's a blank wall. And I'm like, no, it was trying to get me. There's something that was reaching for me. I know what I saw. It scared me to death. I mean, they thought I was being murdered. I mean, I know what I thought I saw, you know. But like I said, I didn't know if it was because I was angry. Now, zoom ahead to, I want to say, like It was before I got married to my wife. So it was either 1999, somewhere around that time. Me and a friend of mine worked at a nonprofit organization that was so basically a 3-person operation. So we were always looking forward to getting our paychecks. Well, we were both roommates in the same place. We weren't going to get paid that weekend, and we had bills to pay. We were both upset. So now I'm upset again. He's upset. So we decided to go back to the house. We have all kinds of equipment. We took over the living room of this person's house that we were living in. We all had our own rooms, but we had a full-blown 10-piece drum set, amplifiers, guitars, and all that. And we decided, you know what, let's just jam out. We're all pissed off. Let's go ahead and just rock out and stuff. So we're just, playing like 9 Inch Nails and all kinds of stuff. And we're just looking down. My drummer, he's a drummer, so he's just playing and looking down and this, that, and the other. And it's just it's like a train. Me and him, we're just playing. It's just getting real intense. And then I look up and I'm like, what the fuck? And then he slowly looks up from the drums, and I shit you not, if he wasn't there, there's no way anybody would believe what I saw. It was a ball of energy between us, just hovering between me and him as we were aggressively playing this music. And we were both just there. I looked past that energy ball at him, and he looked at me, and we were like, what the hell? And he went, bam, he hit the drums like that. And I, strummed the guitar. That ball of energy flew into a TV that was not plugged in, and it just flew into the TV. We were like, what the hell did we just see? And I know that we were both upset. Now, I don't know if it has to do with anger. And like I said, there's things that I don't know that happen that are unexplained. And I'm always looking to hear, states of mind that, or people are angry or whatever. But to me, if he wasn't there, nobody would believe when I'm telling this story about what was happening. I was totally shocked by all of that. And I was already, when was that? 99. That was like almost over 20 years ago that happened. It was just the most bizarre thing that I don't know. That was in Flower Bluff, Texas. And I know that
there's a lot of Native American burial grounds around here in where we're at. We had the Karankawas, we had the Lipan Apache. I think they're Apache. There's a lot of Native American burial grounds in this area. So
we live so close to the water. This area, and it's a large stretch. Like if you guys have ever seen the Gulf of Mexico, like where Sao Padre and all that. Well, where we are, I don't even know how big it is. It's the third largest Indian burial ground as far as shelf goes, and it's been designated as that. And it stretches like all along our coast up until Ingleside, Texas, all the way down to past Corpus Christi area. And so there's always been some kind of development happening. They'll start building apartments and stuff, and they'll run across bones. And here comes, they're trying to survey, and then, they bring in everybody needs to take a look at this. The only problem is, though, there was no construction happening, I want to say maybe about 10 years ago. Some kind of deal was made because now there are, apartments galore where they swore up and down that there was Indian burial grounds and all that stuff. I don't understand how they're building all this stuff on top of all this, because I didn't see anybody moving any of these bones or anything of that nature. It's a travesty. I know that they're going to build some kind of monument for the Native Americans that I honestly don't know if that's just they're just trying to tell the people to kind of, hey, let's make a deal or whatever. But it's all there. I mean, it's been documented, all the Indian burial grounds that they have around here and stuff like that. It's just, I don't know, money talks, you know what I mean? And they're going to build whatever they want. poltergeist is very real. You know what they were
That's
doing.
what I was thinking about was poltergeist.
Totally.
Yeah.
Now I'm not as familiar with it from the Native American culture. Do they have stories of like energy like that, of like seeing like what you experienced with seeing like a ball or orb of energy like you were describing seeing? Is that from the culture, or?
I mean, it's well. See, that's the thing. I'm trying to find. The thing is that even as far as what tribes and stuff like that we're so far removed from that because, just yes, you were persecuted if you let people know that you were of Native American. It was better to be considered Mexican, and you end up changing your name, and then you end up fitting in. There's more of a movement, I feel, that people trying to locate and find their true identity in their tribes and stuff like that. I mean, if you really think about the history of Texas, 1836 and stuff like that. I mean, they were becoming the Battle of the Alamo and all that kind of stuff. They barely became a state. That's not that long ago. The wounds are too fresh for everybody in these parts. As far as the ball of energy and do Native Americans see this, I'm not 100% sure. I just know that I do get lots of strong premonitions. Sometimes I mean, I've documented these things and I've talked with, very close family members and stuff like that, or friends. You could either chalk it up to, wow, you're just hitting the number on the head all the time by chance, or you just got really strong vibes. And that, I guess that was the thing where I was saying that I sometimes believe when I was younger that it was a curse of some time, because whenever I would get really strong vibes, I would get worried, and then all of a sudden something would happen. I'll do one real quick one. It was an art project that we had to do, industrial arts. You have it's when you get a piece of copper and then you draw, I guess, the impression on it, and then you get a doil and you push it so it pushes out. Okay. I had no idea what I wanted to do. At first I was like, well, maybe I'll do a car, maybe I'll do this. So I decided, I got to draw it out. So I'm going to draw the space shuttle. And then the next thing I know, I don't realize what I'm doing, but my friend goes, why are you laughing? I go, what are you talking about? You've been giggling as you've been drawing. And he looked down at my picture and he goes, dude, that's fucked up. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You drew the space shuttle on fire. I'm like, oh, dude, I don't know what the hell I was doing. And I started racing it. 24 hours later, I have a split lunch. So it's a class that starts, then we go to lunch, then we come back. Well, when we came back from lunch, my teacher was crying, and I was like, Mr. Rico, what's wrong? He goes, you haven't heard? Well, we've been at school all day. I haven't heard anything. The space shuttle just blew up today. And I look back at my area, and I'm like, I just drew that yesterday. What are you talking about? She goes, yeah, it blew up. And I was just completely like in shock. I'm like, okay, did I, by coincidence, drew a space shuttle blowing like on fire or whatever? Or was it just a big coincidence? Or was that a sign? Because my friends were like, yeah, dude, you were kind of giggling to yourself and you were drawing, but I didn't realize that I was giggling. Like if I was in some kind of trance, or I don't know. I don't want to use that word because
you were over focused.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, other than the picture with erased fire, and I was trying to tell all my friends that were there, they go, yeah, dude, you drew the fucked up picture. And I go, well, she just said that the thing exploded. And we're like, okay, that's messed up. Coincidence? I don't know. There have been other incidences that have happened where I have a strong feeling, and then I end up finding out the next day that something happened to a person or a celebrity having a strong vibe about something, and this, that, and the other. It's just, like I said, I ended up talking to somebody, and he says, you know what, it could be you're getting these vibes that you're not in tune with, maybe there's something more to it. And that's the only thing I've, as far as explaining what a ball of energy, my friend saw it too, so, I don't know what his connection would be into that, or if it's just we made that. I mean, it almost sounds like something out of Avatar. You know, we're gathering together, we're creating all this stuff. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I know that he started having unusual events following him when he moved out. And he had invited us over, and he said, man, there's been strange stuff in the new place that I have. He invited me and my wife. We had already had our baby at the time, and we went over to his place. And it was all, you know, he's really into gothic stuff, typo negative and lava lamps and The Cure and all this stuff. And it was like going into some kind of dungeon in his place. He had a big old pool table in the room, but he didn't want to hang out there. He goes, no, let's go to my office. I'm like, you don't want to hang out here, man? It's look pretty badass here. He goes, not yet. Okay, why not now? So anyway, we're over there. And then he proceeds to tell us, do you remember that ball of energy thing and all that happened? I go, yeah. Well, there's weird shit that's happening at this new place that I'm at. And then he starts explaining all these things that are moving, pictures of margaritas that are flying off the shelves and all this. I'm like, okay. And it's happening where? He goes, the room that I did not stop. And I said, okay, well, let's go take a look. So I start like looking around, and I'm like, okay, that's unusual. I look above one of the doors. There's this weird kind of, it's not a smoke detector, and it wasn't a, it didn't look like anything modern. It just looked like this weird kind of detector that was like of the walls here, it was kind of just bubbled out here, but it was a detector of some kind over a door. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then I said, that's not a regular smoke detector. And then I looked, and he had 3 sinks, deep basin sinks, like if he was in a restaurant. I'm like, well, what the hell are those over there? He goes, I don't know. They've always been here. There are 3 deep basins over here. And I'm like, oh, shit. And I go to his pool table, and I look under the pool table, and there in the center is a drain right in the middle of his living room. I go, dude, you live in a morgue, dude.
I'm going to say that sounds like an autopsy room.
No
Yeah.
way.
Like,
Yeah.
No, really?
Yeah, it's really-
We looked it up. It was basically like it was a house that was you have an upstairs and a downstairs. Well, the downstairs was the morgue, and the family would live upstairs.
Oh my
And
God.
he did not know that that's where he lived. I'm like, dude, well, that's why all this crap is happening in your new place.
no shit, really?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it was just the most bizarre thing. I go, okay, well, thank you for showing me your creepy house, and you know, but he had somebody come and do a cleansing. But the funny thing was that he told me afterwards that he kind of missed those crazy things happening around the place, and that's where, you know, it's like you kind of miss it, and then you're wondering where it went, and then. But he said it never came back after they did a cleansing. So I don't know. It's very unusual.
It's interesting, the energy thing, because there's a strong belief in the paranormal investigation community that spirits are like electromagnetic energy, right? And then that's why they need energy to manifest. So you get the cold spots. So there's been lots of discussion, like, you know, emotion will drive that. You hear that with like poltergeist activity. If someone, you know, especially young people going through puberty, that'll cause it. People who are anger can bring that about. So that's an interesting example of that. And I know I've been doing a lot of reading. I do a lot of research, but I've been reading up on Skinwalker Ranch right now. And they got a lot of cases of orbs. That's what the investigator, they spent like 3 years, scientific team at the ranch looking into it. It's on a reservation, and a lot of orbs, and people all over the reservation there in Utah have been seeing just balls of light and energy flying around. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
Very interesting. Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm a believer. I'm always looking to see, and our children grew up with imaginary friends, but the thing is, because of their age differences, I never heard them simultaneously playing together, talking about these guys, but for some reason one would outgrow it, and then the other would start talking about it like some friend, and we're like, who are you talking about? And then they end up, it's the same people, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
Was it all three? There was all three of them?
All 3 of them.
All 3 of them, with the exception of our oldest. We have a total of 4 kids. All the 3 younger ones all had the same imaginary friends.
Wow.
Mhm.
They probably weren't that imaginary then.
Oh no, no.
So yeah, according to the curandero,
And
that
is it the fourth, the oldest? Isn't it? I don't know what would make a difference, but is it the fourth, the oldest one a female, and the other three are the?
no, so our two oldest are female, and the two youngest are male.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, there. It was interesting that you guys brought up something else. I don't know if Mariella wants me to bring it up, but she. I want to say. Well, I don't know. Do you want to talk about that? The lucid dream.
Okay. Oh,
I mean, I can explain it just real.
you can explain it, but like just a back history. Ever since I can remember, I would always like sleep paralysis, I guess. I would always experience that. I haven't experienced it, I don't think, in a long time, have I?
No, yeah, it's been a long time.
It's been a while.
But mainly it was at that apartment. The apartment that we used to live in was untouched farmland for the longest time. And so nothing was ever developed on there except this farm community and whatever was prior to them. And so we were the first people to live into this apartment complex with, and we had been there way too long. But that's where our kids had these imaginary friends, Jake and Snakey. That's what their names were. And it was like a little boy. And the word Indian boy had come up a couple of times. Well, my wife the thing is that, okay, when I say this, people are going to go, oh, well, she was hallucinating. She was not feeling well. She had a fever, and she was laying down on the couch.
I actually had pneumonia, and so I was like really, really sick.
So she was laying down, and I was there next to her, and our I want to say it was Hondo. He's our oldest boy, and we were there going to watch her. He was in a playpen right next to the couch. So every time she would make a noise, he was like a wrestler. He was going from one end to the other, and then he would stop and look over the thing and look at her to make sure she was okay. And then we'd go back to watching TV. Well, she started mumbling. And I was like, I turned, I'm like, I'm trying to listen to what she's saying. And then he just looks and stares intently like he's trying to decipher the same thing. It's like, this is a little baby, but he is like intent, like staring, trying to get whatever communication my wife is mumbling. And as I'm getting closer and closer, she's like, look, behind you. She's going to kill you. And I'm like, she's going to kill me? What the hell are you seeing? And then she's got like her eyes barely open, and then I can see that she looks over to this other side. There's a little boy standing there. Like a little boy, and then she goes, there's a woman, and then she started breathing really hard. Behind you, there's a woman in black. She's going to kill you. She's going to kill you. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to slowly try to wake her up because I don't know if this shit's going to really kill me or what. And then I slowly kind of like, Mariella, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, what the hell did you see? And she goes, there was a woman in black wearing a black dress with scythe or whatever it is that you cut the grass or the Yep. She goes, she was going to raise that thing and just slice the shit out of you. But there was the little Indian boy standing over there just watching this whole thing happen. And the first thing I thought of is that my kid's imaginary friend that she saw? Or was she seeing something from long ago in this farmland? Or, I don't know, maybe this is a badass fever that I wish I had. I don't know.
Yeah, heck of a fever, holy.
Yeah, but if there were like other things developed on this piece of land, like, oh, many things have come and gone, department stores and whatever. No, it was intact farmland. It was a big tract of land, and the family had owned it forever. They had never wanted to part with it, and then eventually there was all these stipulations. You could look it up in Corpus. They were like clause and set things in writing that it was never to be sold. It had to be for educational and all this. But then we're developing apartment complexes again, and we're doing all this stuff. These people are not happy that this is happening to their land. So I don't know. They even had a school at one time, a little schoolhouse, and that got moved away so they could build a whole strip mall. And as long as they put the woman's property name on the new school, everybody was hunky-dory and fine with all that. So I don't know. It's just, it's just a little funny business that ends up happening, and you wonder how much of all of that's kind of connected with stuff.
Well, I know even in We Want to Believe, someone had mentioned it was in one of the episodes that it might just be some people are more attuned or pick up vibes more than other people.
Definitely, like there does seem to be just instances that some people are more open to it. I know, like Peter, he's tuned right in. It's usually people who experience some form of trauma in their lives seem to be sort of able to see more. I know, like I mentioned, after my father passed away, I just started picking up on more vibes. I always wonder if it's because you want to see something. There's always that to take into connection. And when you go into someone's home to do an investigation, there's a whole line of questioning. Are you schizophrenic? Do you do drugs, alcohol? You know what I mean? Are you have sound mental stability? And if all those are yes, then you're more you go in with a more open mind. But even then, you want to look for natural experience causes first, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I definitely think there's people, those of us that are more in tune to what is happening around. I don't know if it's because part of your brain's more wired that way, or the more that you experience, the more open to it you become, or you have something like what happened to Brian, but you get so freaked out you turn it off and you stop seeing it. Like I know when my son was born, the last thing I wanted, because I'd see stuff all the time, and I'd see stuff even in the house that I'm living in now. I just didn't want it around, so I just turned off my mind to it. And then many years later, when my mother started getting sick and passed away, it's just like everything just opened up again. So I think your life experiences definitely will tap you into it more so than people who just have no interest at all and just don't care and don't want. I think some people just don't want to believe, because then, there's a whole other world of possibilities that you're opening yourself up to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely.
By the way, Don, I noticed you zoomed in. Hello, Don.
Hi,
Hello,
how
Don.
are you?
Hello. I've not talked to you before.
Yeah, I've got a couple stories for you.
Okay.
Along the lines of mortuaries, there is a playhouse in South Pasadena called the Fremont Center Theater, and it was a former mortuary, and we were doing a play there, and it was intermission, and they had this love seat on the stage, and during intermission, we saw this two little hands come up and peek over the love seat and went down and just disappeared.
Oh.
The lights dipped. The second act went on, and afterwards, everyone in the lobby was saying, "Did anyone else see that little blonde-haired girl?" "Oh, yeah." So, and there were some ghost hunters there, so they came back in weeks later and did a survey of the house, the mortuary and the theater, and they saw some images there and everything. But 2 years later, I'm working on a Ray Bradbury play, The Wonderful Ice Cream Suit, and we're prepping the set, and we're carrying this little small pool table. And I'm walking in backwards, and the person in front of me, facing me, this little hand comes up and touches my wrist and taps it a couple times. I turn and say, "Hey, good to see you." He drops a pool table and says, "What the hell was that?" I said, "Oh, that's a little ghost girl." And so really cool. But
That's awesome.
this one really strikes close to home to me. My sister was in intensive care, and she had cancer, and I'm at home and I'm sleeping, and it's like 8 o'clock in the morning. I wake up and I can't breathe. I feel like I have water in my lungs, and I'm gagging and I'm choking, and all of a sudden I have this calmness about me, and I kind of lay back down on my bed, and then I shoot back up again, and I couldn't breathe. It was like I was suffocating. Then another calmness happened, and I went to sleep and woke up. I didn't really think much about it, but I was just kind of, wow, what the hell happened? Later that night, I hear that my sister passed away earlier in the day.
Aww.
And and this was on December 4th, and my birthday is December 8th. So we had her memorial on my birthday on that Saturday, and it's pouring rain. And my brothers picked me up, and I get in the car, and my one brother, who's a pastor, he said, "Oh, I can't believe this has happened." I just looked at him, I said, "Hey, don't worry." I said, "When we get there, the rain's going to stop. The clouds are going to open up. It's going to be a sunny day. We'll have the service. And then when everyone gets back in the car, the clouds will close and it'll start raining again. And he looks at me and says, yeah, right. My other brother says, you don't know our little brother that well, do you? So we get to the site and we park the car and it's still pouring rain. And my brother turns to me and says, oh, smart guy, it's still raining. And I said, no, not everyone's here. So my mom and dad were the last ones to pull into the parking lot. And as soon as my dad parked his truck, the rain stopped, the clouds parted, we had the service, and we all got back in the car. And as soon as the last person went in the car, the clouds folded back in and it started to pour rain again.
Wow.
And so, but the story doesn't end there. A couple of days later, I'm talking with one of my brothers, and he said, did you hear what happened? And I said, what? He said, well, Mom and Dad were there when Melody passed away. And he started to tell the story, and I turned white as a ghost, he said, because he was telling the story. And what happened was she was in her bed, and she shot up, and she couldn't breathe. And she kind of relaxed, fell back down, and then she shot up again, and then she kind of went back and just went into a calmness and passed away right then and there. So yeah, just a connection.
Like so you. Holy cow.
So yeah, and a lot of stuff like that's happened in my life. And here where I live, occasionally I hear a voice talking to me. I was asleep and I was supposed to get up and time to wake up, Donald. And what? And but one thing that was somewhat touching is that my dog Jasper passed away of cancer. And I'll put all his toys away, and and I went to bed, and during the night I hear a squeak toy going, and I kind of half awake, half asleep. I said, Jasper, your dad loves you, but please, I got to get up and work in the morning. And didn't really think much about it, so I go to work. I come home, and I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, and I put my foot down, and I step on a squeak toy. I pick it up. It's the squeak toy that I packed away earlier that night before. So stuff like that happens to me all the time. So
wow.
But it's great seeing.
Stories are making me cry. They're so profound. Thank you for sharing.
Well, that's okay. It's great seeing everyone.
You as well. Yeah.
That's great. John, that's all.
Thank
Amazing.
you so much for sharing those.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for Trista, by the way, I hate to call on you now after your time, but how did you get involved in doing the paranormal investigation? Like, when did you become interested in that?
Oh, so I did a movie, a horror movie in Big Bear, and then that filmmaker also started doing paranormal investigations, and he started inviting me to come along with him.
Was it something you had interest in, like before that, or?
Similar, I guess, to horror. I had interest, but had sort of suppressed it. Mm-hmm. Because so then I started going on these paranormal investigations. Also, I shot Echoes of Fear and started hearing about Brian's stories. And then when we did the special features for Echoes of Fear, Brian asked us if we had ghost stories to contribute from our personal life. And at first I said no, and then I reconsidered because I remembered that I had a couple incidents from my childhood, and that I actually in my childhood was super obsessed with death, maybe as a result of these incidents. And then sort of realized that I should stop talking about it so much because people were sort of confused. Namely, my parents were like, okay, go to bed, like not really understanding what I was talking about. So, I mean, I think it gave me a real phobia of death because I had some scary experiences. So I would stay up and be like, hey guys, when I die, don't bury me in the ground, just like keep me here, okay? And then they'd be like, okay, like please go to bed now. And so that was happening regularly. Like when I'd be going to bed, I was afraid I wouldn't wake up. I was like very obsessed with death, especially around bedtime. And so it started to like creep them up. Creep them out rather, because I'd be negotiating like, will you guys like, okay, well, if you won't prop me up on the couch, like, can you keep me in the basement? Like, please, just like, if I do not wake up, like, do not put me in the ground. So my parents were so creeped out and people were very disturbed by me. So I stopped talking about it.
Right.
So then by the time I met Brian and we were talking about doing this thing for the movie, I really had completely forgot about it. So now that, and then also just by happenstance being invited on these investigations, and then seeing enough during the investigations to keep going. I guess that's how.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Jason, when did you was this something you were always interested in?
Yeah, it started like I had an interest with it like as a teenager. It's kind of funny when you talk about like everyone that's into paranormal stuff is into horror.
Mm-hmm.
It seems it's kind of this interesting back and forth. And I got really, there's a movie called The Beast Must Die, which is like a Peter Cushing movie from '74 that I saw on TV when I was like 8, and it scared the shit out of me. I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks. And that's kind of when I remember that first interest in fear. You know what I mean? Like that dark side. And then buddies of mine and I would just kind of go out and we'd look at scary places and stuff like that. And we were out in the woods, actually, out at a place called Shuswap Lake. And it was about dusk, and we were kind of out on this hike. And we came across, it was underneath this tree. And it's like this lean-to, but it was like a little lean-to, like about that tall. And a fire pit that kind of matched. And inside the lean-to was like a bone, but it was like a real bone, right? And we're just kind of, that's just fucked up. And we're like, let's get out of here. So we ran home back to the cabin we were staying at. And the next morning we were like, well, we got to go check that out. And we went back to the same tree. There was no sign of anything like that anywhere. And it was an Aboriginal friend of mine told me like many years later that, well, like they believe in little people. They kind of come out of caves and they run around at night and they kind of trick people. And maybe one of them didn't make it back to us. They're going to make it back to the cave. So they set up this camp, which I thought was interesting. But that kind of really launched into this kind of fascination. I'd read on it and do a bit of research, but I always get too scared to look too much into it. Until 2003 when I was in journalism school. And I'd been having some weird stuff happen at the house I was in, which is my dad had built, and he'd been dead about 10 years. And I actually was able to get into this place called Tronquil Sanitarium here in town. And it was an old mental institution and tuberculosis hospital. It closed in the 80s. And in where I live, Kamloops, it became this big, that was the urban legend place. Everybody thought the place was haunted and people would break in because there's tunnels underground and all this kind of stuff like that. So because I was in journalism school, there's other like-minded people. I was able to put together like a guy that had a video camera, and we went and found a psychic kind of thing, and a buddy of mine who had been out there and had all these weird things happen. And then another guy in class who just didn't believe at all. So we went out and we spent the night. And that for me really launched things because we would have brand new camera batteries that had been fully charged. You'd go in, you'd load up your camera, you'd walk a few feet, boom, die. Completely die. You know, the psychic was picking up on all these weird vibes and everything. I remember at one point in one of the buildings, we had power there. All the lights went out. She screamed. The lights flashed back on. Like it was almost like perfect timing. And it was winter, so she had a toque. And the toque had sat and it was pulled up like that. And you watched it settle down like someone had reefed on it and then let it go.
Wow.
And those are kind of the two big things. And just a feeling like there's places you go into that just feel wrong, or that feel like something bad had happened. Like I've been to crime scenes and you just pick up on it. I don't know if it's like, you know, you're just doing this to yourself because you know the stories about the place, but parts just felt off. So we did that investigation. I went back out a few months later with the psychic, and we were just kicking around. We went in the daytime this time. We went down into the tunnels, and there was a door. It was unlocked. We already passed through it a couple of times on this trip, and we're kind of coming back. Let's do like sort of one final walkthrough. And I grabbed the door. I pulled it open like about this far, and then something went bang, and it pulled it with enough force that I went face first into the door. She took off, like just screaming, ran out of the building. I'm down in this dark tunnel, just kind of like, wait for me. And I kind of just went running out after that. And I think that was the final cement for me being fully interested in wanting to know more about it, because it was just, there's three things that happened there that I just couldn't explain anymore.
That reminded me of something when you said about having like a bad vibe about something. I was at the Muter Museum in Philadelphia. I don't know if you know what that is, and it's like the Death Museum.
Okay.
And with my friend Annabelle, and one part of it is they have like a skull wall, and it's just all these skulls. And then you can go up and read about the people, and some of them are just normal people. Whatever. But one of them specifically, like, really gave me like this bad feeling. And I went up and read it, and it was a child murderer from Russia. And it really was weird to me that one just stood out to me of all the skulls. That like it was just, it made me feel creeped out. There's something about it. And relative to all the other ones, it just looked like a skull. It didn't look any different, but there was just something about it. And then when I read about it, it was very strange.
There's definitely I think this is true. If you're a good person in life and you die, that vibe kind of goes with you. You know what I mean? And I think if you're a bad, like you say, there's something that whatever that person was in life tainted even his skull.
Mm-hmm.
I think that definitely, when you hear about like evil spirits, I don't think it's so much like demons and monsters. I think it's just that guy was an asshole in life, and he's going to be an asshole ghost now, and that's just the way it is, right? That's at least that's something that I've come to believe just through the years I've been doing this kind of thing.
Yeah. The chain you forged in life, like he told Ebenezer Scrooge.
Exactly. There's something to that.
No, it's like an interesting story. Now we're talking about places and vibes. Is when I was a kid, because I was doing horror films, even in science fiction and horror films, and even when I was a kid, and my brother-in-law from my older sister, he was doing a job, and they had some specials, like you bring in the strangest thing and you get some sort of discount. So someone brought something into him, and then he brought it all excited and gave it to me, and it was all wrapped up in this cloth. This is the same cloth. This is like 25 years ago, like in the cloth. And then, he's like, oh, you're going to love this. You can put it in a movie or whatever. And it's like, you're going to love this. Cause it's like, like from a medical, office, and I'm just like, oh, that's awesome. That looks like a real skull. And then it's like, that's a real skull. It's like, this is back from when they actually used real skeletons.
Oh, like from India?
For medical school, which is like, if you know the poltergeist story,
right.
It was cheaper for them to get real skulls from the medical schools and stuff than to make them. So when she's in that swimming pool and all the bodies are falling out, it's real skeleton.
Yeah.
Does this explain your haunted house, Brian?
No, the thing is like, it's never been in a movie. This has never been in a movie.
Yeah, but it's in your house. Like,
yes, but it's haunting your home.
Once you're given this, then you're like, I don't know what to do. So I've just always kept it wrapped up in the same cloth. And I've kept it wherever, like on a shelf or wherever we've gone for I've gone for 25 years because I'm like, I don't know. Because this was a person, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not a person now, but it was like the skeleton of a living person. So it's one of those weird things. It's like, I wouldn't even know, part of it's like, oh, you should bury it somewhere. It's like, I don't even know if the person wants to be buried. It's like, I know nothing about the skull.
Just Trista didn't want to be in the ground when she was a kid.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe someone would
prop it up on the couch.
I just put it back here if I had it.
I just feel like it's like the only thing I can do is just to keep it in the way it was given to me.
Yeah.
And definitely not put it in a horror film. Because I feel like if I do that, then I've crossed the line.
Pretty bad juju after that.
But it's weird. It's like something like that. It's like you don't. I don't know. It's like a very strange line for me between scripted, story horror that you do versus real horror in real life. And for me, there's
I agree, because that's sort of my problem with some of the new movies where if they want to use COVID in a movie, it's like we're living it right now. So I mean, people do whatever they want, but I feel weird about that. So yes, so when you were writing Echoes of Fear, is that in your mind then to because you're inspired by something that's happening, but you don't want to use too much of it, or?
Well, no, that was different because that was just, I felt like, because that was direct experiences that that was happening to me. I felt like that was fair game because it wasn't something I went out looking for. That was something that was happening to me and low. It's funny. I mean, really quickly, it's like going upon locations. When we did our third film, Flo and I, Dark Remains. It's our other supernatural horror film. We did our third feature, and that one was totally written, and we were getting ready to shoot, and then someone was helping us find locations in a city in the South, in Rome, Georgia, above, outside of Atlanta. And they were helping us find a place. And they're like, well, do you need an abandoned prison? And I'm like, well, no, there's no abandoned prison in the script, but we'll take a look at it. We looked at this abandoned prison. I'm like, oh my God, this is like a scary prison. This is like a pretty old prison from the 1930s. I mean, that was like a hardcore prison. And then Lo was immediately like, well, there's a prison in the movie now. So I had to like rewrite the script to incorporate this whole prison. And I was able to do it after pitching a fit that it was impossible for me just to shoehorn a prison into a non-prison movie. But we shot there for about 14 days / nights in this prison. And we found out that there was real ghost stories in the prison that called a ghost called Big Red. So we're shooting in this prison at night. We didn't know about this Big Red story till we're there. And, you would be at night and people sometimes would split off, and it was a pretty big prison. It's all empty and abandoned. And Lo went with somebody else, and they went into this kitchen, the kitchen area, and there was like this cooking tray, and there were cookies on the cookie tray. And I'm like, she's like, well, why? I wasn't there, but she was like, why is there cookies on the cookie tray? This is an abandoned prison. Why are there cookies? So she goes up to it, expecting, of course, that these must be like ancient cookies that are going to be hard as a rock, right? So she goes up to it and touches it, and they're completely soft.
Wow.
Like they're totally fresh cookies that haven't even been cooked yet.
Did she eat any?
No, they immediately left. That part. The thing is, we found out later from the warden. We did a behind-the-scenes documentary of the real ghost stories that we put on the DVD of that movie. Where we got the actual people who used to work the prison. They still worked at the operating prison right next door to it. So they came back and told their ghost experiences. We put it in as an extra of that. And one of the things we learned was there's a bunch of theories of who the ghost of Big Red was, but one of the theories was it was a cook who was killed in the prison.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't know that, and Lo didn't know that. So, of course, when she found this out, that was a freaky thing. And then later on, some other ghost investigators wanted to find out about this prison and heard the stories, and they went in and did investigation. And they had some experiences that weren't unlike what happened to Lo. She was trying to take some still photographs, and what you were saying, Jason, she had a totally charged battery in her still camera. And she went to take a photo, and her totally charged battery just goes completely dead. So it wouldn't work at all. So it goes from being a totally charged full battery to being a dead battery, just like that in the prison. And now the prison...
Similar to the... Oh, go on. Sorry.
Go on.
Similar to the... Well, I was going to go back to Jason. I was going to say similar to the cookie ghost, there was a foot rub ghost.
Yeah. Did they mention
I love these ghosts.
I remember that in the episode.
in one of the rooms just by somebody, and it's happened to a couple people in that hotel that we were at. And even though, like you said, the battery too, but the camera gimbal I was shooting that whole first run of episodes with would act up constantly through the whole thing. It would get pulled even on its own. It was just, it's again, electrical energy, right? Playing around with your equipment and such. So.
Well, I was glad that we were able to get those stories because, I mean, the prison's gone now, and it's like the only record, of those people's stories and the only visuals of this prison that still exist are on that doc that we did. So I'm glad that we were able to capture that and document it, which I wanted to throw that back to your show. We Want to Believe. That's why I think it's really cool that you're actually getting those stories recorded from the people, even if it's secondhand, the other things that have happened there, you're getting those stories recorded, before they're gone and lost. But I'd love it if you would talk about in episode 3, and I've never seen this before in a paranormal ghost show, and I really liked it, was you actually recorded, I wouldn't call it an EVP because you heard it in the scene, so it's not really an EVP, but you actually heard the woman's voice, and you check the recorder, or as a voice or a laugh, and it was actually on the recording as well. But even though you heard it and recorded it, you were still like a little dismissive of it because of all the background noise and everything else. Like, you still didn't count that as a win, like as definitive proof, even though most people in most ghost shows would have jumped up and down with this as like, oh my God, but you didn't.
I got something.
That's what I really like. But you also, you want to talk about it, but you also did something I thought very interesting with that is you showed how what you've recorded is actually filtered and amplified in the actual computer so you can actually hear it. If you want to talk about that a little bit, because I've never seen that before on a show.
Yeah, it was one of the rooms, I think it was 226, and I was sitting on the bed, and Sarah, one of the other investigators, was sitting on the floor by the door, and it was loud. It's on the main, this hotel's kind of on a main drag here. There was a lot of back and forth traffic noise, like the whoosh kind of thing like that. But it literally sounded, and I wasn't wearing headphones, but I thought I heard a woman whisper something. And so I kind of turned to Sarah's out of this side here, and I kind of said, did you hear something? She's like, yeah, actually I heard, because she was recording with her digital recorder and she had her headphones on. She's like, yeah, I think I heard something. And I said, well, I kind of hearing it off of this side. She's like, yeah, it's coming from right over here. And it was weird because we both went back and looked at our audio, and I had like a whisper, but it was so faint, but it was still above the traffic noise. So it was like it was in the room. So I sent it to Jason Morris, our editor. But Sarah went back over and she couldn't make it out on her device at all. Like, she didn't pick up anything. So we got Jason basically to run it through all the audio filters that he could to kind of enhance it and make it louder. And you could hear, it was like, Peter listened to it after and he said it sounded like a woman whispering Jason. Because it was kind of like that Jason kind of sound. But I didn't hear Jason. I just heard like a kind of thing like that. Which, yeah, and given that one of the stories is in the hotel is about a woman who committed suicide there named Holly. You just have Holly, you have, a woman whispering, and you'll see in the next episode with evidence, we tie into a little bit more with Holly that we picked up in another part of the hotel. But we just thought that's important because to show, like, you don't usually, you're right, you just get yeah, we got it. But I mean, you can't just take it at face value. You got to kind of run it through a filter. You got to make sure that it's not something that's not actually there.
But you showed the process live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, noise cancellation and
yeah, to really narrow it down to that sound.
That's really cool.
Thank you. We just thought that was the only way to do it realistically, like, because otherwise, yeah. And Sarah still does say, no, I didn't get anything. Like I did.
No,
but I did,
you know what's so cool though is that I don't know. I guess I'm liking what I'm hearing, how your process is on your show. I haven't seen it. I'm gonna, as soon as we get off, I'm gonna probably let's go watch it. Because like there's like some ghosts, I don't know, I can't even think of the names, but it just feels like it's so scripted, or it feels like it's not real. And with you doing what you said you're doing with your process, I'm really intrigued. And I think that's going to be all for the better for your show. So
well, thank you. I know in the paranormal investigation community, those shows, like a Ghost Adventures or whatever you call it, they're just dismissed. They're kind of laughed off because they are, at some point, I guess because of ratings or a desire to show something, something is faked to just get your interest and get people to watch. But as soon as you've done that, you have lost your credibility. And if, say, Peter did that, his 27-year career, his being head of like Vancouver Paranormal, it would be over instantly. He'd have no credibility. And as a new investigator who looks at it seriously, I'd be done too. And we don't want to put that at risk, right? Like we were even kind of, because demon is the buzzword in all these shows right now, and it's everywhere. So I think it was in the second episode where Peter actually gets, a demon on the plane. He starts laughing. And even when I heard that, I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. We're trying to be like the un-Hollywood anti-stage ghost show, and we get demon first time out. Like, come on. It was just like, but what comes up comes up, and you just kind of have to take it as you get it, kind of thing. So,
well, I thought the woman's voice thing was, for me, it was even more impressive and interesting, even though you didn't really log it as being evidence. But I really I guess I'm harping on it again, but I really like the fact that you showed the actual process of filtering it so you could hear the voice better. Mm-hmm. Whereas most shows would just have in the audio, they would just have the cleaned up voice with no explanation.
Yeah.
That would just be there. Like, oh, I heard this. This is what our recorder picked up. Boom. And it's the cleaned up voice. But they've skipped all the steps of what it took to clean it up so you could hear the voice. And I really like the fact that really, I recommend everyone see it. It's in episode 3, I believe. It's on a loop. So you can see the sound looping. And you can actually see them move the parameters in the audio program to clean it up. And you're hearing it change as they do that. And I've never seen that before on a ghost show. Done raw like that. I thought that was
I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Fellow Jason,
program I used to edit the audio podcast Audition. So.
Oh, did you use the same one? The same?
Yeah.
Nice. And that's what Jason uses for his audio too, like for our editor down there. And it's. I think you have to, like, in episode 4, like we touch on all the evidence we found, and we tried to break it down. I don't want to like spoil anything, but try to break it down to different types of evidence. Like there's 15 different types of evidence that's counted. So we try to put each in its category and show it, just in a way that we're going to leave it up to you guys to decide if there's anything there or not. But yeah, just to kind of, because if it's physical, so we show signs of the physical evidence that we might have got, or audio, and just try to put it in that way. And hopefully it still works. We're trying to keep it, like I say, entertaining, but also like real.
Yeah, I know, and that's tough. I understand having edited on some of these shows for television, not my stuff, but editing for them. I know it's very tough, the demands of keeping it real versus editing it in a more exciting way. And the one that I work on, it's I have a confidentiality agreement, so I can talk about it. I won't even name it. But they don't actually fake anything. But even though they're not, the constraints of the show and the network and everything else dictate a certain expectation in terms of the cutting and the flow.
Plus you have to have so many episodes.
Right. And it's tough when you're on commercial television. It's very tough. I mean, it's great that you're more free by being on YouTube, being on the internet. That you're a little bit more free of not having to be under such constraints in terms of what you have to do in terms of rating and pleasing advertisers and network executives and that kind of stuff. So.
It certainly helps. I know Joe Blow's been very open. They're just kind of they have sort of concerns maybe in length per episode and just making sure that there's like something, but there's enough stuff that you get through a day-long investigation or a few days where you get something that you can at least put in there to make it work. And we thought it was good to kind of go through, I think, and show that process of enhancing, like you say, Brian, the audio, so people can see how that's done. That, from in episode 4, we actually, when we do, need to make it a bit louder, but people have already seen that we've done that, and that's how it works. We're just going to make it so you can actually hear it, and making sure you got the word in case people can't see it, but just sort of make it draw a little more attention to it. Because in an original cut, we had the EVPs actually the same level. It was very quiet. It was like it just didn't work. And this is where the filmmaker, the film school guy, becomes, it just doesn't work. It's not exciting enough, right? But we said, okay, but we've actually shown that we can enhance this to make it clear. So Joe Blow's like, well, let's make the EVPs louder. So we felt we could now do that because we've shown that we've already been doing that.
Yeah, I strongly encourage on the other shows to keep showing the process of that. I find that as a viewer, I find that very interesting, and it helps, I think, show your authenticity by the fact that you're showing what the process is. So it's kind of like,
I do think sometimes in other ghost hunting kind of things, they'll show like equipment, but they won't explain what they are. And some people might just think, oh, this is, some doodad they just have to look, like it's doing something. But if you actually show what you're doing with it.
Well, it's not unlike, to go back to film, it's not unlike if you shoot raw, like most digital cameras shoot raw now, like Echoes of Fear was shot raw. And if you look at the raw image, it looks hideous. And then you can see the finished image and it looks completely different. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's a fictional movie. So of course you just show people the finished image. But it's like, it's much truer if you're being authentic like Jason is, to show what that process is. Like, this is what our camera picked up in the raw, but now we can change these parameters and bring out the contrast and change this, and we can bring out what may be difficult to see in the shadows, and you actually show that happening so everyone can see exactly what you're doing, as opposed to just popping to the finished process shot. And I really like that. So hats off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very
And I also liked what you said, Brian, about getting these stories while, people are still here to tell them, because it's a big regret of mine that I never recorded with Troy and I. Grandmother, we're brothers, people don't know, because she had a lot of stories about back in Pennsylvania that she grew up in a haunted house. And I really wish I recorded them at some point.
Well, see, it's tough to think about because, of course, in your brain, you never even want to kind of
right.
admit that someone's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like something you even want to really think about. So I think it's difficult to think like that, because in order to get ahead of the curve and record that, then your brain has to be thinking like, well, this person's not going to be here anymore. So your brain has to kind of go into a dark. So I think there's a natural resistance.
Yeah.
I mean, like when we recorded that for the extras for the movie, we weren't thinking like, well, this whole prison is going to be knocked down. There won't be anything left of Big Red story. It will be lost because this whole prison won't be here, in 6 years. Well, that never even crossed our mind. Right. It just happened to be something that worked that way. Because I think it's hard to imagine how everything changes. Like I think in a weird way, it's like I think everyone's in quote haunted, or everyone has a ghost of something. If you look at it in the bigger, more metaphorical sense, because of what changes and the loss that happens, kind of becomes a ghost, even if it's like a personal thing.
Yeah. Because when you guys were talking about entities, I remember something my grandmother used to tell us was, in the house she grew up in, her parents, so our great-grandparents, they actually boarded one of the rooms shut because they would see a guy in there brushing his teeth in the morning. He obviously wasn't there,
What?
but yeah. It wasn't like anything crazy. It was brush his teeth, but just the fact that someone was in there, and they actually boarded the room shut.
Well, that would just yeah.
That reminds me of an old SNL sketch, really old one, where they were parodying Bob Vila. When he had his show, first house or something, and they had someone parodying Bob Vila, and he was walking around this house, and they're like, "Yeah, there's and it was the funny thing was an Amityville house, but he was explaining it like he was showing them how to fix up their house. Well, you got the wall bleeding blood here. You can put up some partition here and block that off, and over here that's called a hell mouth. Well, you could just put some rocks around that and make a nice hearth, So he was like, I was trying to find it because I thought someone might post it on YouTube or something. I can't even find it. But awesome. I remember seeing it. I'm like, this is hilarious.
Maybe
a very practical way of looking at an Amityville house.
Right.
Didn't call it this old haunted house or something.
Yeah.
What you should do, you should take two great reality show traditions, the ghost hunting and marry it with the home improvement, put them together.
There we go.
There you go.
No one steals this idea.
Show, maybe.
we gotta copyright it now, and we'll all just make it happen. COVID ends, we can get out and do it. That'd be brilliant.
That would be a faked up show. So.
Yeah.
Not have the authenticity of your show.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be fake?
Well, I think the idea that you would find an Amityville house every week to fix up might be a high bar, Neal.
It would be different room. We're fixing the den this week.
I like that.
Different rooms in the house. Okay.
Right. Put new shingles
closer
up.
would be the basement. We got to go down into the basement and renovate the basement. And the
right. When you get in,
I love the idea.
3 or 4, you might start to run out of ideas. But
But I love the idea, Neal. They could just board up the room with the person brushing their teeth. That's a solution. That's a solution to that room. We'll just board that up.
If we don't see it, it's not happening.
That's right.
Right.
Well, the ghosts are all gone.
If I did that in Exos, we would catch.
That would be a totally different movie.
Could you imagine?
We can just wrap that up so quick.
That would be the short version.
Yeah.
Mariella, were you
out of sight, out of mind,
Right. Were you skeptical, or were you a believer, or anything before you met Robert?
No, I don't know. I just know when ever since I was little, I would like the earliest childhood, I just never wanted people to think I was crazy and stuff. And so I know like the earliest childhood memory of me is actually in the crib, like, and I don't know if anybody, I really have a memory of me being in a crib and just waiting. My mom, I guess, would keep the lights off so I could take a nap. And I was, you know, just there holding on to the railings. And I would just see, what I recall is, I guess, these dark or like black dogs. They look like Dobermans or something. And I mean, I'm not sure what type of breed or whatever, but they reminded me of black Dobermans. And I remember seeing them again as I grew up when I would sleep. And I grew up in a very, very, very Orthodox Catholic household. So that stuff like prayers and holy water. I went to Catholic school. The Catholic school I went to, actually, the only sanctioned exorcist in our region lived on the campus of our Catholic school. So stuff like that was always talked about. And so when I was younger, I had a very firm belief of it. But as I got older, I guess I started like, no, this, like, science is real. I need, you know, there has to be an explanation for all this stuff that's been happening. Like, because I would, up until recently, I would have sleep paralysis. You know, I would, like what Rob said, I would do that a lot. Then we did this documentary with Curandero, with El Indio. And, you know, I went in there just wanting answers, but at the same time, I wanted to prove that this guy was crazy, because in our town and a lot of other towns, the curanderos, they just tell you whatever you want to hear just so that you can pay them money. And this guy was just completely different. He never asked for money. If you wanted to give him money, you wanted to give him food, whatever you had to offer him, you know, he just wouldn't ask for anything. So whenever, like, when we initially started the documentary, I had never met this man before. I just knew what Rob came and told me. And I walked in, how do you call it, Rob? The room, cuarito?
Yeah, it's his room, yeah.
Where he has a desk, but there's all these trinkets and all these, like, things just all over the room. And I guess one of the things that he said is that you're going to see things in here that are very familiar to you. Well, the first thing that caught my eye was nailed to the pillar was a Pooh Bear pacifier. It looked exactly like my son's pacifier. Was it Zoe's or
Zoe.
One of the kids' pacifiers? And it had the same markings on it, and it was chewed at the tip, the way, you know, she didn't. I'm hitting Rob. Rob, look, that's the pacifier that like Zoe had. And so El Indio says that there's gonna be some things in here that are gonna be familiar to you. So then he goes, go ahead and have a seat. We sit at I sit at the table, or not the table, the desk, and in one of his drawers, he has like a bunch of sets of like different cards that he reads. So he has a bunch of different decks of tarot cards. He has a bunch of different decks of like playing cards. And he'll, I guess, like as you're talking or he's talking to you, he's kind of reading you. And depending on like the vibe you give off and the readings that he's like getting from you, he pulls out a deck specifically for you to read. So I want to say that he pulled out like, because this happened how many years ago, Rob? This was like over 10 years ago. Close to 20 years ago, because Hondo's 17.
Yeah, well, It's
Yeah, maybe about 15 years ago, 15, 16 years ago. So I think they were playing cards, just like what you would play with poker. And he's just doing like your past, your present, and your future. Like the layout's all the same as if you were to do like a tarot reading. And at the time, I had met my birth mother. And we were my daughter, when I met her, Zoe was, I think, 3, but her husband sexually assaulted my child, and I wanted answers, and I was looking, but at the same time, I was skeptical, if that makes any sense. And what he read was that I was there to seek answers, and that I would internally I would find these answers, like the answers would come to me. And so then he goes, so I'm starting to believe again, if that makes sense. My skepticism is slowly starting to go away. So then he tells me that I needed to go and he had me go and get some like branches, like herb, they smell like they were herbal or incensuous. I don't know what the vocabulary word is, but they're certain type of tree that it's like incense. So I went to another room, and in the middle of the room was the Star of David, and you stand in the middle of the room, and he said to just start acting like you're brushing all this negativity off of you. So I'm there, and doing the motions, and he's saying his prayers and stuff, and then he's also spraying or throwing holy water, and he has a rosary in his hand. And also at the same time, I'm holding a prayer candle, like what you would see in the Catholic Church, like Our Lady of Guadalupe or St. Jude, St. Michael, one of those prayer candles. So I'm holding one. I think the candle I was holding was the Virgin Mary. And he said for me to pray, whatever it is I'm thinking, just pray and brush it off. So then he starts to do his prayers, and then with those branches, he puts them around in the circle, and he starts doing the fire cleansing. Well, in the fire cleansing, these little tornadoes, or it looks like the fire is just swirling around, and there's really like in the room, there's no window, there's no draft, there's nothing to make the fire do what it's doing. And he said, you see that right there is a demon or an evil entity. He said it in Spanish, so the translations, it's either demon or entity, spirit, a bad spirit was attached to me.
The mala suerte, that you could see that the spirals, he was reading the spiral, the flames. The thing is, just to preface real quick about what she's trying to say, was that the fires were staying within the circle, the circle with the Star of David. And the thing is, the object of to push these fires out, that was what he was going to try to do, to make the fires go out of the circle, away from the circle, so that to remove it from her. And so that's where these fires are going around her right now.
So then we finished off the week. He said that I needed to take, like, he sent me home with one of the things about El Indio is that if he felt that you needed like extra candles or extra prayers, extra something, he was going to send you home with it. Well, he sent me home with like this herbal shampoo that he made, or a bath soap that you put in the, basically like you poured this thing into your bath and you soaked in it. And I was supposed to do that for the whole week, because at the end of the week we were going to be going back to go be doing some filming. Well, the next day when I woke, after I did that bath, I had scratches on my arm, and it was literally in the shape, like, I don't know if you can see this. Our Lady of Guadalupe. That's what, I don't know. That is, but y'all know the shape of Our Lady of Guadalupe. That was literally scratched into my hand, and it looked like claws. Like I had been like, you can't even explain it. It looked like something had clawed me from the inside of my skin, and it was like trying to claw out. Because
that was the unusual part, because instead of it being like scratches from top going into the epidermis, it looked like it was coming from the inside and scraping from the inside of her arm. It's the weirdest pictures. They're in a hard
we took
drive
pictures. Yeah, we have pictures of them because we documented everything, and it didn't. I don't think it hurt, but it was just weird that it looked like scratches, and then the shape of Our Lady of Guadalupe. I even had a doctor look at it, and he couldn't explain what was like. At first, whenever you first saw it, it looked like scratches, like a cat or something had scratched me. But whenever you touched, like you ran your hand on it, it was smooth. Like it didn't even break. My skin was not broken. So then we go back to Ketula, and we show Miguel, which is El Indio, and he said that that was the entity hanging on to me. And he also said that also was the sign, the Our Lady of Guadalupe, that I was a curandero. I was a curandera. And I just, I needed to go and, I guess, get training, because you can't just be a curandera. You need to be, trained. Yes, you'll have visions. Yes, you'll be able to see stuff. But in order to to go further along, you needed to have some sort of training or whatever. So from being a hardcore believer in I guess the spirit stuff, and then to being skeptical, and then now I'm back to being a believer again, because there's so many things that you can't even explain. Like when my grandmother passed away, she's Native American, and in the culture you have a spirit guide. So when she was on hospice, we were all gathering as a family, my uncles, my aunts, my cousins, we were all saying our goodbyes. But I want to say like 3 days before she passed away, there was a rooster that was just outside of her room, just hanging out. Then a dog mauled the rooster, and my grandmother passed away. So I don't know. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of stuff that can't be explained. And, I don't know. Did that answer your question, Neal?
Yeah, sure.
It also gave us so many more questions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
What you described happening to you, is that in the feature doc that you guys did?
Well, so when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to, if that's what he's saying that I am, I need to, that's my calling. So I was tracking, I think, every weekend to go down there to go study with him. And there's a language barrier, because I don't speak Spanish at all. I can understand it if you speak to me really slowly. And that's another story as to why, we didn't grow up speaking our language and stuff. And, well, his wife, I guess, I don't know, she was just I guess, real jealous. I guess it's understandable. There's a woman that's going and getting trained by her husband and stuff. So she started, I don't know, it was just a lot of drama. I didn't want anything to do with it. I said, Rob, just take me out of the documentary. But it's the footage, I think, is still there.
Yeah, we have all the footage. We were gonna have my wife go in as a skeptic and then just track, just like we were tracking. I have all these testimonials. I have all these different cases. I have various different limpias that were performed during this whole week-long duration that we were there, and I wanted to have a control. She only knew that I wouldn't really tell her too much, and I kept her real private from where I worked, and El Indio, Miguel, and because I wanted her to go in cold, just like the way I did when I met him. My coworkers, I had just started working there, and they said, "Have you ever heard of Miguel from Cthulhu?" And I'm like, well, okay, who's this? And they said it's a curandero, and I was just totally intrigued because obviously I've had a lot of weird shit happen to me that I'm like, yeah, I'm like very interested in meeting somebody. But I said, but if we go, I don't want no calls. I mean, like if we're gonna go, let's go now. And I said, let's go. Don't nobody make any phone calls. I'm going to go in there cold. I don't want him to like, oh, you guys gave him the lowdown of who Rob is. And they didn't really know who I was anyway. I was just a new guy that started working there. So we went, and I said, I want to go through the process. I want to experience what everybody else is. We got a number, and I was just taking in all these people, mass amount of people, just kind of there with it, waiting to be seen. Eventually, it took about 2 hours before we even got to the front of the line or whatever. Miguel was disturbed. He was bothered. The fact that we didn't tell his wife, because he was going to bump us all the way to the front, because he knew the guys that I went with. They knew each other very well, and he goes, "No, you should have said something, and I would have moved you guys ahead of the line and all this kind of stuff." And he's no, we're bringing in a friend of ours. He wanted to meet you. And but I didn't say anything. There's a language barrier, but I understand Spanish very well. So I'm just there sitting down while they're talking. And okay, imagine me being Miguel. I'm going to look at the screen here. So he's talking to one guy and he's nodding, and then he'll do this, just stare at me because I was sitting in between them, and then he would just keep staring, and then he would go talking to this other guy and this, that, and the other, and he would just keep doing the same thing, just staring at me. And then he goes, "Stop." This is all in Spanish, by the way. "Stop. Do you mind if I read your cards?" And I'm like, "What?" You're giving me a vibe very strong, and I want to read your cards like right now. I wasn't even there to do that. It was just, let's just talk and do all this stuff. So he goes, "But do you mind that they're here? Because when I get into this, start reading, everything is going to come out, and I don't hold back. I'm just going to say whatever is coming to my mind." And because I guess he gets in a trance and he's just going to read you. And I said, "Yeah, I don't have any secrets. I barely started working with these guys. I don't have anything ill about these guys or whatever." He does the thing with a different set of cards than what my wife had. This is your past, this is your present, and this is your future. This dude read me like everything that ever happened to me. He was reading everything. I was completely floored. There's no way he knew who my wife was. There's no way he knew what happened to me at 17. There's no way he knew that. It was just so weird that he was like clicking on everything, and I was trying to remember everything. And he goes, "The reason you haven't succeeded is you've been cursed or something." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, you're saying that word?" And I was like getting freaked out, because I'm like, okay, no one had ever told me that part. And he goes, we could do a limpia, but it's a really strong, they were using Santa Muerte on you. And they put this whammy on you that it's like going to stop up your future. This woman loved you so much, she was going to keep anybody from having you, and you were never going to succeed in anything that you ever wanted to do. And I was like, what the hell? And the first thing I thought of was my ex-girlfriend, who her parents are from Mexico. She used to do all this kind of weird witchcraft shit that she kept that secret from her family and all kinds of weird. I'm like, there's no way he would have known this person, because I've never ever mentioned any of these kind of weird things before. It was just so bizarre. And I said, I have to go. And the minute we did all these kind of things, but the minute I got home, I said, this guy knew shit that happened to me in my past. He knew where I was at. He knew kind of a little bit about my wife, but didn't say specifically who it was. Somebody, is praying very strongly for you all the time, which he was basically reading my mom. My mom is, let's just say that she's enlightened. She can read cards. She kind of kept all of that secret until we found her cards wrapped in this weird kind of like what you showed with the skull, she had these cards wrapped, and we always wondered what the heck that was in the drawer. My mom was like, "You're not supposed to be going in my stuff." When we got older, she says, I used to read cards and I stopped because it gave me answers that I did not want to hear and I wasn't ready for. And I was scared that these things were going to go after you. And I'm like, I think that's what's happening. And you've never told us this stuff, but now it's coming after me and my brother and whatever. And you know what I mean? She was, it was like, if it wasn't going to go through her, it's looking for some other kind of, portal or whatever to get into. So I'm telling my wife all this stuff, and I said, you know what? I have to make a film. We have to make a documentary. We have to do all this kind of stuff, but I don't want you to know anything about it. You're going to go in there cold because I know you don't believe any of this type of stuff, and I want you to go in there as a total and take it for what it is, like I was, and we're going to take you down the line just the way I did. You're going to wait. You're going to come in and you're going to go through the whole thing. The thing is, it got too real where now all of a sudden I'm there, but now I'm like, that's my daughter's pacifier hanging on the nail that my daughter was already, what, how old was she, Mariella, around that? Like 10, 11, 12?
No. You talk about it at the time?
Zoe, 9, 10?
At the time that we did the documentary?
Yeah, Zoe. She had to be about 10 at least.
I don't think so. That was Caitlin's. So I think maybe Zoe was about 5 because Hondo was still in a stroller.
Oh, yeah. Maybe. Well, yeah, you're right. But she was already not doing pacifiers a long time ago.
Oh,
so
no, yeah, she was done.
he just said, you're going to see things in this room that are very familiar to you, and that's a way to comfort you. And I'm just like, oh shit, now we're really in the shit because this didn't happen when I was here. Now it's happening when my wife's here. And he goes, yeah, there's a coyote over here in this corner that is watching and guiding and protecting you. And I'm like, now there's coyotes and shit all around. And
yeah, I've heard. Like, yeah, he said that the coyote was my spirit guide or my spirit animal.
It just got a little too intense and out of control that we're like, you know what? We're going to put all this aside. This is like moving away from what we thought we were going to do, but we have all this footage still. And I'm like, yeah, this is pretty intense stuff. I don't know. We could, well, I mean, it's not finished. We can always put it back in there. I don't know. Yeah.
It's really interesting when you were talking about it. It's reason to ask.
Because when he sees all those people, he's going to give you a cure. It stays with him. You got bad luck, he's going to do a limpia on you. Because we were wondering, well, what happens at the end of the day? He goes, well, I have to do a final cleansing on my own self because I don't want to take this back to my house and then it affects my family and it can kill my family, all these bad things that I have. We tried to do a filming of his final cleansing. We were collapsing from the fumes. We were like, I don't know how this guy can stand in the center of this circle, sitting cross-legged, and all these fumes and fire all around him. We had an original cameraman fell over. Somebody else had to come up, pick up the camera. Wow. And we had to film at a totally different time because we felt like we were just disrupting his entire thing. I noticed that there was a rooster that kept making noises and noises and noises. I said, this thing is going to screw up every interview and everything because I could hear it go, wah, 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 and it's the middle of the night. I'm like, why is the hell this rooster? The minute he started that final cleansing, the rooster, I kid you not, the rooster's like standing up. His head goes down, his tail goes up, and while he's doing the whole cleansing, the rooster stayed in that position to allow Miguel and never crowed one time while he did that final cleansing. Mm-hmm. I was like, what the hell does that rooster doing? It would not shut up, and now he's doing the final cleansing, and the rooster is in this weird position, not saying anything at all. And I'm like, yeah, I've seen too much weird shit already. It was just so bizarre, some of these weird things that we were seeing. Yeah, it's Miguel in Cthulhu. He's still there. I get IMs, instant messages all the time. I'm desperately looking for Miguel, and they're all in Spanish. I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, now
the
the guy that,
backstory on
After we
that,
showed it, I had people messaging me
Yeah.
in Spanish. So looking
and because the story on him, the curanderos that do all this screwed up, like your brujeria, the witch
luck
dog, the witches, they go to him to get all that evil or the negativity off of them.
Yep. He explains that where the curanderos that are getting all the money and he says they're chingazo, they're fucking you, okay, they're taking your money. They come to him to get cleansings because they have bad luck shit that's affecting all of their family and getting people sick, that in order for them to get cleansed, they go to him. He goes, because they're stupid, they don't know what they're doing, and I know how to do it.
I
And
hope with COVID he's not seeing them.
No kidding.
We don't know. We haven't spoken to him in I don't know how long.
Yeah, he's you know what? I'm very interested in if he is. I just know during this whole COVID thing, people have been reaching out, and I guess they're looking for help because they're like desperately searching for him and looking. Well, Neal, I guess they were contacting you because you showed the film.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was like, I don't know where. So then I sent the message to Mariella.
Yeah, there's dudes looking for me, man. What's going on?
Wow.
Yeah, it's very intriguing. He would give us these crazy stories of, like, when he said, can I have permission to read you? And because he did this with, there's a lot of drug runners that will visit him because they want protection to continue their, doing drug running and all this kind of stuff. Well, he had two guys there, and he was reading, the guy's cards, and he goes, "You sure you want me to read this while this guy's here?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's okay." He told him some stuff that this guy's gonna double cross him and all this kind of stuff. And it's like
starting gang wars.
Well, they deal. It's the cartel is real bad in that area. Mm-hmm.
Well,
I don't even know if we should be talking about.
Yeah, that's not who was messaging me.
They burned his shack down. They basically burned his shack down, and so there were some people that were very upset by that liked to visit him regularly. So while he reconstructed his shack, this was something that we were filming. He was talking about this, and he goes, "This can't be on film." And we're like, "Okay, just shut the cameras off." He goes up to a piece of pottery that's up at the very top shelf, and he brings it down, and it's covered with a towel or some kind of blanket or whatever it is. And then he removes it, and there's bones. And he goes, "These are the guys that burned down my shack." And I'm like, "Are you shitting me?" And he goes, "No, the people that come to me found these guys, and they brought me them. So now they're going to sit up here and watch me all the time." I'm like, "All right, dude."
What's going on in Texas, guys?
So when you had that, the skull there, it just reminded me of what El Indio's room is very reminiscent of the Warrens' museum with all the little all the implements that people find on their property. They bring them to him. They could be old school farming implements that you haven't seen forever. And he goes, "That's the mala suerte. That's where the brujeria, the bad luck, was put on." He does a cleansing, and he keeps it there. He goes, you don't need that." He'll send people to their property. They find weird things on there, and he goes, "That's people trying to put bad luck on you." And we have a whole segment in the documentary where he breaks down the different kind of bad luck or mala suerte that can be put on you. And then we show some of these things that he has all kind of scattered around his room. He's a very, very intriguing guy. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And Lo has joined us.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello. Good to see you.
Lo, she's the co-director and cinematographer and producer of Echoes of Fear. So, and if you want to hear them, she has some interesting experiences that are not related.
Yeah, definitely.
Earlier, so anytime you want to hear them. So.
No time like right now. I think.
You want to talk about the two you on your travels that you had, the one in the Philippines and the other one?
Oh, well, yeah. Oh, there's the one. What about the one in that bedroom? They're both in a hotel room.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
both- I
they're doing
thought
my
both-
hotel room stories.
Well,
Then.
she travels a lot because she's a camera operator. So
Well, the weird one in the Philippines was that we were and okay. I was in the hotel room, and they gave us flip-flops, to wear in the room. Like it's something that the hotels or something common, I guess. I don't know. That place did, which was great because when you take showers, it's much better. Because it's not always like you can't drink the water. Like you have to be very careful. Kind of like when we went to Mexico, it was the same thing. But so anyway, I was used to like hearing my flip-flops in the room, and then one night somebody walked in the room because it was my flip-flops. I was on someone else's flip-flops, but I could hear the walking across, and I was like, what the? I was like so scared, and then I started asking some of the locals for, do they have any spirits? And then they were like, yes, and we don't want to talk about it. So anyway, it was just a little incident that happened, and then another one. I think I was in Mississippi, I think, but there was this really big storm that came that night, and we all went to our rooms, and at the time I had an extension cord I kept with me, and because they didn't have enough sockets, in the walls, and some hotels cheap. We were in a cheap hotel. I don't remember where we were exactly, but anyway, so I had set up my extension cord across the bed so I can, plug in my laptop or phone and whatever. Anyway, I go to bed, and in the middle of the night, I wake up and hear this sound that keeps. It wasn't that high pitch. It was kind of. I'm like, what the heck is this? I says, you know what? It sounds just like those rods to close the curtains. Because it sounds just like the rods. It's got to be that. But I was so scared. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna stand under the sheets. And the next morning, the first thing I did, like, okay, let's figure out what this sound was. So I go right to the rod. I move it. No, that is not the sound. I was like, fuck, what the heck is this? Anyway, so I don't know, I moved my rolling chair. They had a desk and a rolling chair. I moved the rolling chair, and the extension cord was wet. And as I move it, I hear this clang. And I was like, oh my gosh, this was the sound. That was exactly the sound. So when you move the chair, you rotated it, it would make a sound with the extension cord. And it was just kept on going that night. I mean, I was just like so freaked out that, this happened. But a lot of time I'm really scared. So, because I do believe in some stuff. When I was younger, I played with it a lot when I was a teen, and it went a little too far. So I had decided that I can't bring on spirits anymore. So I'm always a little scared, and I'm scared to bring them on, or I'm scared to communicate with them. So I try not to do that. Anyway, that's my story.
What did you use to communicate, if I may ask, when you were younger?
Well, we started with my friend. We actually would do it's kind of like seances. Mm-hmm. At first, we were trying to play with Ouija boards, but we would just concentrate and start calling them. And at one time we went to a place that my friend knew, a family house had something going on there, and things happened in there, and it really scared us. We realized that, oh my gosh.
Interesting story. Want to say it?
Yeah, it was like an old country house in France. It's kind of not furniture in it. It was kind of empty. When we first entered, there was this dead bird in the fireplace, And we're like, whatever. And then so we went to a little room in the attic to try to call a spirit. And the only thing we got when we did it was we started having like this small, it sounded like a rodent really crawling in the walls, right? And we're like, okay, this is not working. We can't do it. So we went back to the living room, and we had invited another friend with us. We were 3 people. So we put all our sleeping bags in there, and we're like, let's just sleep next to each other because who knows what. So we played a game just because we were just, we're trying to pass time. And then suddenly, it was a skeleton key. The key started moving, and we're like, there's no wind, there's nothing going on. So the skeleton key started moving, and then somebody upstairs was walked, and no one else was upstairs, but we were all there downstairs as far as physical people, and really strong steps all across the ceiling. We could hear it, and I was like, fuck, let's go check it out. And then it continued where the sound, it was just some beating going on. There was like some shed attached, like not a garage, but a shed attached to the house. And right against the wall, there was like really strong, like someone took maybe a piece of wood or a broom or some tool, and they were just banging it really strong on the wall. And we freaked out. And so the story goes on that I knew a person who was a healer. She's not there.
Well, when you went upstairs, no one was there.
Oh yeah, we went upstairs. There was nothing. Nothing. And so anyway, I went to see my friend who's a healer. She would heal people, or even doctors would call her sometimes. She could heal people of like really bad disease and stuff. But she told me to bring a picture of the place. So we brought in the picture, and then she started looking at the picture, and she's like, "There's a well in the yard, in the backyard." And my friend had come with me, and I was like, she's like, "Yeah, there is a well." He says, "I see a date, and the date is 1880 something." And my friend was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, there is a date," and she had never been there, so she didn't know anything about it. And then she continued, and she was like feeling really awful. And she just stood up and she left. Apparently she washed her hands. She came back and she said, there was a murder in there, and the lady was strangled. And she said, there's a ring that's in the front of the house. And she was giving all this information that she didn't know. And my friend was like, "Oh, we did find a ring once, a long time ago." And so she actually could tell us the story. She said there was a woman who cheated on her significant other, and he found out, and she was strangled in the house.
Oh.
And that was the story. And then I was just like, oh, I guess, if you really call for them, they may come whoever they are, whether they're good or bad.
And then you stopped.
Yeah, I was a little scared because it was getting a little freaky because we called for it and then it came.
And how old were you?
I guess I must have been like 17.
Yeah, that's about the age that this is gonna get weird. My brother tells the story better, but at about 17 years old, we were messing around with a Ouija board, and we just, I don't know, goofing around and all that kind of good stuff. I think we told you, Neal, I think you've heard this story before, but we're all goofing around asking weird questions and stuff like that. And one of the questions was like, well, who am I going to marry? And we're just, whatever. And so we're doing the thing. And then it goes to a letter M. And then we're like, everybody's like, oh, it's going to be your ex-girlfriend, because I wasn't with her at the time. And then it goes to an A. And then everybody starts looking around going, A. And then it goes to an R. And then it goes to an I. And then it stops. And then we're like, well, that's not your ex-girlfriend's name. And everybody's like, who the hell is Madi? If you look at my wife's name down there.
Yeah.
And then we didn't think anything of it until my brother was in the service. And he goes, "Hey, man, do you remember when you were messing around with the Ouija board and all that?" He goes, "Do you remember what it spelled out?" And that's when he reminded me of that story. And he goes, "Yeah, that's the Ouija board. It was saying that you're going to meet your future wife." And, well, we've been married for 20 years now.
Wow.
Awesome.
I have a couple of things I want to share with you now, too. I was in the Army back in the 70s, and I was stationed in Germany, and we're having a company party, and they have a psychic on site. And I was a bit skeptical at the time, and we're all hanging out, and out of the blue, she comes over, she said, "Your energy is so strong, I just had to come and talk to you." She said, "Can I see your hands, please?" So I put my hands out, and she was looking at them, and she said, "Okay, well, to start off, you're left-handed." I think to myself, "Oh, this is a load of crap, because I'm right-handed." And then she says, "No, you're right-handed, but you were a forced right-handed writer. When you were a kid, they forced you to write right-handed." And she said, "The reason I came over to you is because I can tell that you have the power. It's not that strong right now, but it's going to grow within the years, and whatever you do, be sure to use it wisely." And she said, "Also, what gave you the power is the 2 near-death experiences you had when you were 11 years old." And I'm looking at her saying, "What the hell?" You know? And when I was 11 years old, I was hit in the crosswalk by a drunk driver, and I survived.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And so, and then within that same year, I was on the back of this flatbed truck and hanging onto the bumper, the drop down bridge, the drop for the truck, and the driver took off with me hanging onto it, and I freaked out and I jumped off. So I hit the ground and I went forward and I went head first. It cracked my skull open, and got to the hospital, and they said that I was lucky to be alive because I had a near fractured skull.
Wow.
And no one knew about that where I was in Germany. I never really talked about it. So, and that was 1977. And fast forward to 1986, I was in a car accident once again, and I survived, and it was very scary. It was on the freeway. I got rear-ended, and a good friend of mine that I met in the military visited me from England. So she and I are at Venice Beach walking around, and we see a psychic, and I said, "You know what? I'm going to go talk to this person." I was drawn to her, and my friend was off to the side, and the woman took out her cards. She prayed over them, and she said, "You've got the power." She says, "You've had a lot of things happen to you, and you use it very wisely." And I said, "Well, thank you," because I was in tune with people's stuff and things happening. And she said, "Right now you're going through a lot." She said, "But there's one good thing. You have a dear friend from another country visiting you, and she's going to be your support system. So whatever she tells you, listen to her." And she said, "Right now you're going to be going through a lot of times, but this time next year you're going to have surgery, but don't worry, everything will be fine. You'll come through it with flying colors." And here I am today, be able to share that story. So, and also regressing back to the first story, the woman said to me, she said, "You've had a few past lives. And in fact, you've talked about one." And I said, "What are you talking about?" She says, "When you were a kid, you talked about one of your past lives. And that past life was in 1963 when JFK was assassinated. I was in kindergarten. And my friends and I, we went home, and we all went back to my place and got into the house. And my mom was, "What are you doing here?" And she had not yet heard about Kennedy being shot. And I said, "Well, the president was shot, and they sent us home." And she said, "Well, you know what? Just go down to the room and play with your friends. I can't talk right now." So we're downstairs in the playroom, study room, where my brothers had their school books, and there's this one book on the table, and I pick up the book and I look at the cover, and I said, I remember I cried when he got shot too. The person on the cover was Abraham Lincoln.
Wow.
So how could someone that's only in kindergarten know about Abraham Lincoln being shot? So yeah, that's what my life has been about. Just stuff and the paranormal stuff happening all the time, and just feeling people's energy and the good, the bad, and everything in between, and just try to channel it properly and just be open to it, but also know when to be able to block it, just and keep it away. But yeah, all these stories that are being shared tonight are so amazing, and I'm glad I'm part of this.
I'm glad you called in, or zoomed in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Jason, where can people find We Want to Believe?
Oh, it's at Joe Blow Horror Videos. And we also put it up on a site for another show I do at wecamefromthebasement.com. And the first 3 episodes are out, and the 4th one comes out on Monday at about between 9 and 10 Pacific time.
There we go.
How many episodes are there total?
Well, this will be the 4th one, and then we've shot, I think, 6 more. And we're just going to keep going. Like, we're just sort of lining up more cases we want to do. We're just in the middle of shooting a series of episodes about Bigfoot. We're going on Bigfoot hunts.
Are you planning on going? Because I haven't seen your show yet, but are y'all traveling? Are you planning on traveling? Or
We're sort of traveling around the interior of British Columbia because that's kind of all we can really do at the moment.
Mhm.
But as soon as the pandemic kind of loosens up and there's a vaccine, we definitely want to travel. Like, I'd love to go Vancouver Island. Trista and I have even talked about trying to set up so she can come and do something, or we could come down there. I'd love to take it on the road, go through the States, North America, and I mean, money willing, like, it'd be great to go to Europe and do something as we go along. So we'll just sort of see where it goes. But that's the plan, is to definitely hit the road.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I saw the first 3 episodes that are out there, and I really liked it. And Brian brought up some cool points about it, like showing the process, and it doesn't seem like scripted is a main thing. Yeah.
So thank you very much.
I'm excited to see the conclusion from the other 3, because it's all part of the same story. So
Right.
On Monday.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
So will the first 10 episodes then all be the demon jar?
Well, we've got, the Demon Jar's 4 parts. So the
Okay.
4th one comes out, and then we're moving on to an investigation called The Barn, which we did at this barn in the interior, where the owner's kind of been experiencing this interesting phenomenon. So there'll be about, I think, 2 episodes. Then we did another case, which we're calling The Doll's House. It's this old house with quite a haunted history with all these creepy old dolls in it. And so that's going to be a couple episodes as well. And then there's the Bigfoot hunt, which I think is going to be 3 episodes in the end by the time we're done. So
Okay, cool.
Oh, that's great. So basically, what happens on the site kind of dictates how many parts you do.
yeah. And this one, the Demon Jar, probably would have been 3, but we didn't know what was going to happen. So we figured out how to kind of stretch it to 4, but then we found that might be a bit too long. So we did the next couple cases when we sort of sat and looked at the footage, just like, no, it's 2. Like, we don't want to push it now. Like, we know we can get out and do more. But just because of the Bigfoot nature of it and the angles we've been taking, it's going to be 3 for sure. Like, there's just so much material and that we've done, et cetera. And we're bringing in some guest interviewers like Ken Gerhardt, who's a Bigfoot expert, and Shannon LeGrove, Into the Fray, who's written a book called Beyond the Fray Bigfoot, and just that kind of stuff to add different elements into it.
Cool. And let's see, where can people find Echoes of Fear?
Well, Echoes of Fear in North America, or at least in the States, you can find it digitally at a bunch of places, including Amazon Prime now, if you have Amazon Prime. And the Blu-ray, you can order at a bunch of places online. The Blu-ray is the one that has has about 80 minutes of extras, including the 55-minute Echoes in the Dark, which has a lot of the discussions of what the film was based on is included in that.
And where can you purchase the Blu-ray? I didn't catch that.
Oh, if you just Google it, it'll pop up a lot. Like Dark Delicacies has some signed ones. Dark Delicacies here in LA.
Is that it's a store? Is it a store?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Burbank.
Okay,
But
awesome.
You can get mail order from it too. So.
Do you own the store?
No. They're just selling the ones that are signed, but there's a bunch of places online you can just order it.
Okay.
You just Google like Echoes of Fear Blu-ray. It'll bring up a lot. Like Amazon will sell the Blu-ray, if you want to get from Amazon. So there's a bunch of places you can get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to say there's something interesting with paranormal when we did our other film, Dark Remains, and actually I ended up doing like a little documentary interviewing the guards of the prison.
Yeah, I got to talk about that.
Oh, you did?
Bit, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like the dark talk.
it was, yeah.
It's pretty freaky.
Yeah, that's on.
And even
cookie
like
story.
there's a first room we went to where it had a shower, and we were scouting. It was before we shot. I don't know if you remember that. When we went into this room, it had like a shower, and it was really dark. So because there's no light, we went in there, and the camera shut down. Things started. I was feeling really, really weird in there, and we didn't even know that they had a ghost in there. And we found out after we did the movie that the paranormal team came in, and they told us that they actually found it in that shower area.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Oh,
Same area.
Wow.
Yes, that's the area, because we wanted to even put a crafty nearby, and I was just, I can't go in there. This is banned. This is a banned section. We just have to be in the other room. That's a little, but it was scary.
It was creepy.
Yeah, it was really scary.
And then also, I forgot to mention Echoes of Fear, not knowing who watches this, Neal. Echoes of Fear is coming out in the UK on DVD on Monday.
Last time we had, a lot of people were asking, about, because
it's coming out overseas. I think
slowly.
Supposedly it's going to end up being in 30 countries overseas, which is kind of amazing and really great.
Guys.
Congratulations.
That's
No,
awesome.
it's great.
Nice.
I'm just happy people are seeing it, so it's exciting.
Well deserved.
Is that the same day as we want to believe? Sorry.
Yes, the same.
Yeah.
Wow, hey.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's like a holiday here and Without Your Head.
Oh, yeah.
And what about your documentary? You're saying it's only in Spanish right now with those subtitles?
No, the short has subtitles.
Okay.
Is it online, Rob? Or?
Yeah, it should be online. And then the feature length, the original cut feature length is all in Spanish. There are no subs on it, but if anybody wants a link, I could always send the link if you're just kind of intrigued to see.
Please do, yeah.
Lo can understand Spanish, so maybe she could do a live translation for me.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, there's several limpias or cleansings that happen. You get a day in the life of when he is not cleansing. He's on the farm. He's with his kids, which is a very weird living arrangement, because some of the kids are not even his kids. They've actually been left there because the parents, I guess, can't take care of them, and he brought them into his fold, and so he was raising these kids as his own, and you get a interesting glimpse of what he does in a week's time, being a curandero.
What's the name of it?
El Indio de Cotula. Yeah.
What area of Mexico is it in?
Oh no, it's in Texas. It's really close to the border.
Laredo. I
Yeah,
think.
Laredo. Yeah, between Laredo and.
How close was that when I was in Texas? Was it near there?
I want to say it's because from here to the border, I want to say it's about a 2.5 hour drive. So maybe an hour and a half drive from here to Cotula.
Yeah, it's about an hour and a half drive from here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and it's literally in the middle of nowhere, Texas.
Yep.
So,
You can easily get lost. You end up going to a different town, looking for this town, and when you get there, just a point of trivia, LBJ actually taught elementary school in Cotula, Texas. There's photos of him in his younger days teaching, all these kids there, and it's a very famous picture. But at one time, I guess it was thriving. You know, the oil boom was really happening, and then when that kind of tapped out, everybody left. They kind of had a resurgence with all the fracking, but I mean, we're just destroying all of, you know,
The land.
everything. Yeah, we have so many earthquakes throughout Texas that we
We never used to have earthquakes, and then whenever all this the fracking happened in that area, there are earthquakes now. So and then whenever the sceneries even changed, that now whenever you would go and have these long drives with nothing but country, all you see are the oil wells. And all along the side, and then these big, like, what are they called? Like tubs, but big metal tubs that hold the fracking water, and you can see all like the gas. I don't know if you've ever seen gas or heat coming off the road, and it has like a shimmer. That's what you see coming off these things, and it's just the land is not the same. So I don't know why I went on that tangent.
But it's an important one, so I'm glad.
Yeah.
So.
Now, when do you guys do your podcast?
Okay, so I retired and decided
retired from the podcast.
No, I retired from my
I
job.
see.
And so now I'm in beauty school.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I'm going to school to for esthetician. My goal is to become a medical esthetician, but to also do like makeup for film and stuff like that as well.
Give me a makeover next time I'm down there.
Yes.
Well, just to let everybody know.
So that's another tangent. I'll get to that.
Well, I think my wife should make a story or whatever. My wife achieved in less than 5 years, became a sergeant at a correctional, the jail. She went from not having any experience there to becoming a sergeant, and she's got all kinds of stories of being, you know, a female in that kind of environment and stuff. And in her time, when the time is right, she will. I'll see if she can tell her story, because and she had left right, you know, before COVID really took off. She gave them warnings. She said, we need to do all these precautions and all this, but these guys did not want to hear anything from a woman, much less a person with a liberal lean, anything of that nature. That was like zip, quiet, you know. I don't want to turn into politics. I'm sorry, Neal, but
no,
we do it all the time.
It basically became the mantra was, it's a hoax. And these are all her superiors were telling her that. And they were like, why are you wearing a mask? My wife, from day one, when we started getting stuff in March, she was wearing a mask, and they were like, why are you wearing that? She was the only one doing this on her own. And like, I got a family, I need to protect my family. And they were like, you're crazy, you and all these people and this, that, and the other. Well, when my wife had retired, within that 2 weeks time when she was gone, the jail went out of control. They tested 90 people, 90 inmates. Mm-hmm. Out of the 90, 87 came back positive for COVID. Right now,
and they only tested
a small section of.
They only tested, and what was the driving factor? I loved my job, and I know that right now there is a negative thing with law enforcement, because I worked with I was with the sheriff's department, and I loved it because I liked working with the officers. I liked working with the people. My job was not to judge anybody. My job was to correct, you know, what was going on. It's the title, correction officer. So if they're doing something, you know, that they shouldn't be doing, I took it in the way I did it was, okay, so if my kids are acting up, I'm going to go correct their behavior, you know, so that way they're not doing it again. And that was my approach. And that's where I earned my respect. So my last day, the captain I was working under said to close the dorm that had just opened up. And mind you, we are so understaffed. I think we were like understaffed, like 30 something officers. So we were really like stretching thin. I'm talking like officers having to go and either come in early or stay 4 hours late. So it would be like a total of 16 hours, and you can't, in Texas, I'm not sure what the laws are in the other states, but in Texas, you cannot work over 16 hours, and we were pushing it to the limits. So they decided to open up a dorm with all these people in my facility that I ran, and they had like the 14-day like time period where they had to stay in an area before moving them. Well, the powers that be moved it from 14 days to 10 days. And I questioned it. I'm like, why are you doing that? You know, this thing, you know, we had been so lucky to not have an outbreak in the facility at all, in both facilities. So he went from 10 days to 7 days. Well, during that time, this guy comes in, gets transferred over to the facility that I ran. And the last day I worked, the captain said to shut down DSL because he had promised the officer that he was going to be able to go home at his regular time. Well, there goes the patient zero. Had already been exposed. Everybody in this unit gets dispersed and absorbed in 3 other units. So there's these 3, everybody's sick. Everybody's sick. And then if you have people that believe it's a hoax, they're not wearing their masks and they're not cleaning with the bleach or the chemicals that they're supposed to be cleaning with. I mean, it's going to spread like wildfire, which is what it did. And I'm already immunocompromised and stuff with the medication that I take. I don't know. I had it. Like it wasn't the officers that I worked with. It was not the inmates that I worked with. It was the administrators that I worked with that made me leave my job. And, I don't know. I felt like I had to retire. It was done. And I'm at the age, like I'm in my mid 40s that if I didn't change my career now, it was going to be too late. So I pulled my retirement. Now I'm going to school now. So answering your question, Neal, our podcast, I try to do it on my days off. So Saturday is like my Friday. So I get out of school at 4 and, we get ready for our podcast. So we do one on Saturday and we do one on Sunday. This is what we've been doing. So except this past weekend we had the Hurricane Hannah. Right.
Yeah, it's too bad because you had some really big time guests lined up, I heard.
Yeah, Neal, Trista, yeah.
No, but we have you guys on in
a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Hey.
So
very good. I'm looking forward to it. I know Trista as well. Yeah. And I have a really nice interview with Mariella when I was in Texas.
Oh my God, I was drinking.
Which I've not posted. She did drink quite a bit, but and I get a very nice story for people. You'll hear all about how Mariella and Robert met and how they get married, and it's a nice podcast.
There's no filters. The filter went away.
Right. Well, I was totally sober. But yeah.
I'm sure you were.
I was, yeah.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, no, I haven't drank anything in like 15 months.
Oh, this was during that time.
Yeah.
I thought it was before that.
Oh, no, if it was before that, odds were good. I would have had a lot to drink. Yeah.
It was all on the cusp and the eve of COVID. We actually had a filmmaker who was originally from Wuhan. Yeah, Wuhan. Yeah. And he was living in New York, and he came to the festival, and right after the festival, he flew to Wuhan to be with his family. He posed a question to us, which we thought was so science fiction sounding. I think, Neal, you were there. He said, has America ever shut down an entire city? And we just looked at him going,
yeah, it was like crazy. Like,
yeah, we're like, they would never do that. That's, and yeah, here we go.
The whole world shut down.
Yeah, it was so weird. And he did go to China. He had been trying to get back to the U.S. He did go to France, and he faced all kinds of hate. Because he would walk in the streets and he would get yelled at. He has Instagram videos of all this, people yelling at him and telling him to get out of the country and it's his fault. And it's just so bizarre what he was facing over there. And because he loved France, he went to school there. He got all his filmmaking schooling there, and then from France he went to New York, and they paid him. He goes, "Well, I will make whatever films you want me to make in New York." He was living it up, and then I don't know. He got kind of lost there for just a little bit because I think he had an apartment. He said, "I have to get back because my equipment's there and my lease is going to go." I don't know whatever happened that part, but we do have. We have touched base with him, and in a future episode, we're going to have him as a guest, and that way he can kind of fill us in with
the COVID.
his
he's a
adventure.
really nice guy. I hang out with him a lot. Yeah. Even when I first got there, we all went to Whataburger together.
Yeah.
It was funny because he was all about. He's like, "Oh, it's very American," because it was like this big giant burger.
Yeah. Yeah. When you come to
actually,
Texas.
honestly, it was really nice too because I think some people think people from Texas might be, I don't know, I don't say rednecks, but but we went out and there was a nice guy. He's like, "Oh, you guys aren't from around here," and he bought us like I forget the burger. It was like a sausage. It was like a breakfast burger.
Oh, the breakfast on the bun.
Yeah, and he's like, "You guys have to try this," and he
nice.
bought one and cut it in half and gave me half and gave.
One thing I have to say about Corpus, there's some people that might run you over while you're crossing the street.
Because I walk all the time, and as soon as I got there, Mariella was like warning me like not to walk because like you're gonna right around like what I walk all the time. And I went to go cross like the highway. I'm at the crosswalk. It says green, walk. I start walking. Everyone's just flying through. It's like, oh, she was right. This is.
But I mean. But here's my but. The people in Corpus are very generous, and they will. We have.
You also warned me some places I shouldn't go, which I did go anyway. But
yes, you did. I was like, why can't you go there?
Yeah, I don't know why I do things, but yeah. Well, it's 3 a.m. in the middle of the night. It's totally fine.
Yeah, we're looking at your. We're looking at your texts and everything and your posts, and we're like, "Oh my God, he's going out for a pickle."
That's true. I'd go walk like 5 miles to get a pickle.
Yeah.
And then you went to the coffee. Did you go to the coffee shop that sold guns?
Yeah. Because because I got a picture. It just said coffee and guns. That was the store.
No.
It was like the essentials of life: coffees and coffee and guns.
And
I think that's what it's called. It was like the essentials, and that was what they sold: coffee. And
Well, growing up in East Tennessee, there was I know there was at least one video store and gun store that was combined.
Right.
So I guess you could buy your gun and then Rambo. What could possibly?
Yeah, and there was a 24-hour bail bondsman I walked by. I thought that was interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting place. I had a good time. No, but it was good food. Very good food. And very good host, Robert.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and by the way, South Texas Underground Film Festival, one of my favorite film festivals.
Aw. Well,
Honestly,
you're one of our favorite people. Then that's for real. We talk about you all the time.
Neal always talks about you guys too.
Yes,
so
and Elvis.
It's all good.
Shout out to Elvis.
He's asleep right now. You see him?
Okay.
He's on the couch.
All right.
His sleep's all messed up.
Very good. Well, this was very cool. I was happy to have everyone here.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's great, Neal. Thanks for having us.
This was a really good
Thank you,
episode.
Neal. It
It
was
was awesome.
great.
Loved the stories.
Very much.
Yeah,
Some
great.
great stories by everybody.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry if I told Jason the show would probably be about an hour.
That's okay. That's all right.
He knows never to
I
believe
probably
you
knew that
again.
was not going to be true to begin
Oh,
with.
Neal, that was such a
I
lot.
said to my wife, it'll be probably 2. So it'll probably be 2.
Yeah, maybe 2. But 3 is fine.
No chance at 3.
I know. Never.
Oh,
No, it's
I
great.
think I might scare him if I told him, oh, it's probably 3.
Yeah.
Oh,
All
I
good.
think something came up. All right, everybody.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you for having
Thanks,
us.
everybody.
It's nice meeting everybody.
Nice to meet you.
Bye.
Great to chat.
Great.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for watching. AJ says fun times, and it was a fun time. So,
It's fantastic.
yes.
Bye.
And thank you, Don, as well.
Everybody.
Yes.
Thank you. Hope you do it
Yeah.
again.
I'm thinking Don and Troy might be related, but
I think you might be right. Yeah.
Yeah.
My other twin.
Mhm.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.